G'day and welcome to On The Esky, an Aussie sports podcast where we like to break down the week that was in the wide world of sports. Cricket, boys, we rule. We rule at cricket.
Back on top of the world.
The girls are champions of the world. The boys get a win in indoor cricket stadium. It is an outdoor cricket stadium in indoor. I was about to say New Zealand. Indoor in India. Nathan Lyon did a bit in that one. Rugby League, we've got our season preview part 2. We'll look at the Sydney teams and caveat we are Sunday afternoon, so we've had a brief look at a few of them.
Yes.
We'll talk some NBA. The Bucks, Celtics, and Nugs all sitting pretty. Klay Thompson has put the Warriors on his back. How will the Lakers do without LeBron for the foreseeable future? The EPL Arsenal. It's time to start believing, Gunners fans. 5 points clear, 12 rounds to go. Possibly got away with one overnight, 97th minute. How you going? Plus a final round, probably the most anticipated card in recent memory, although maybe Markachev and Volkanovski say hi. But we've got the return of some people's GOAT. He's definitely in the conversation in John Jones. Massive gap between 205 and 265. He's been putting on weight. He's been on that dirty bulk for the last few years to go up and fight Cyril Gahn. We're currently watching the prelims. We might even get into the start of the main card whilst we record. Please do remember, if you are watching this on YouTube, we do have timestamps. You can skip to the sports that you like. We do have socials. Check them out if you could, please. We like to start off this show by shouting a beer to commend excellent work in the sporting world. Sean, I'm going to pass it over to you. Who are you shouting a beer this week?
Yes, well, the NFL Combine is underway. Quarterbacks were today. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to shout a beer out for Anthony Richardson, who I think Lamar Jackson maybe robbed us of this kind of performance, and we finally have a quarterback in that mold that's come out and absolutely dominated the NFL Combine. Set records in every category, which is crazy to think. So I think he was 6'4" and a bit at about 250 pounds, ran with 4.44, jumped over 40 inches, jumped over 10 feet, and it looks like an absolute specimen as a quarterback. And it's kind of what I expected to see out of Lamar Jackson many years ago. And I was a huge Lamar Jackson fan when he was coming out of college. And Richardson maybe doesn't have the pedigree or the results in college that Lamar did, but he is an unreal talent, and a lot of teams will be looking at him in that first round now. It's interesting quarterback class coming up, and an interesting draft process now kicking off officially with the Combine through 3 days. I think there's 2 days to go.
It's unbelievable athleticism out of Anthony Richardson. We might have a look at everyone's Combine results in our next pod, so it's currently underway. But he's definitely done his draft stock no harm in the way that he performed. I think a 41-inch vertical out of a quarterback that weighs 250.
Yeah, he jumped higher than some of the top first round wide receivers did. So
insane, and runs a 4.4.
Yeah. So they'll find a use for him. And at that size, that was slightly lighter than Von Miller. He's heavier than Josh Allen, and of course ran quicker than all those guys did. So he's a freak athlete. So interesting.
Monks, I'm going to pass it over to you. Another athlete who performed under some extenuating circumstances the other night.
Yeah, very much so. He probably needs
loves a beer.
Loves a beer. Probably needs a really nice ice cold one as well. I am, of course, talking about Cam Munster. So was it Thursday night?
Thursday night,
that's right. First game of the season.
Compound fracture on his right hand, his ring finger. Mm-hmm. Did it performing a tackle.
Landed on it, I think.
Early as well.
Yeah, landed on it. Then proceeded to go make another couple of tackles, I think, before he got run off with the trainer. But by all accounts, gruesome sort of injury. You hate to see those sort of things at the start of the season. I think perhaps you showed a picture of it to us in the group chat, and you could definitely see bone coming out of that finger, obviously being a compound fracture. But just massive props to Munster on his just durability, I guess, being able to
Yeah,
make a couple plays and then
I think he missed the main
return
bit.
to the game
Exactly,
as well.
Yeah,
Played the whole game.
Yeah,
Played the whole game. So
taped it up, a couple needles, and sent him back out. He played the over 60 minutes of professional rugby league, and helped them win a game in Golden Point. So
that's it.
Unbelievable toughness. We talk often about the NRL and is it maybe the toughest sport getting around, and acts like that from blokes like Cam Munster definitely are a testament to that. Did have surgery over the weekend and is expected to miss 2 to 3, but got Melbourne off to a good start. We will talk all things rugby league after we chat a little bit of cricket.
Mm-hmm. That's it.
What about you, Bobby?
this week?
Well, I'm busting my bank account wide open here. It's not quite a whole country, but it is a whole football team. Might have to just limit it to the team and not the fans. I'm sorry. Most probably Aussies aren't really aware of Union Berlin, and you'd be forgiven for not knowing who they are, because they have only been in the Bundesliga, in the top flight of German football, for the last 4 years. Were really battling. They got relegated back-to-back years, back 10, 15 years ago. Their fans did a whole bunch of unpaid work to try to get them back, to being a formidable team in the Bundesliga. I was having a look at their team list, and I've got no idea who anyone is on that team list. And they currently sit third behind the giants of German football in Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund. An unbelievable effort from them. We may see them playing Champions League football, and considering they've only been back in the top flight for 4 years, it's pretty incredible. So enjoy a nice, cold German beer, maybe Beck's, maybe a nice big Beck's, Das Boot even, Das Boot, if you will. Shout out to the Beer Fest, great movie, that one. You just got to make sure you turn it. The bubble comes down at you very quickly, and keep an eye open for Union Berlin as the Bundesliga starts to heat up. Mop of the week, boys. Someone who is extremely talented. I'm a big fan of what he does on the court in the NBA. But overnight, some mop-like behaviour. Sean, do you want to take us away with this one?
Yes. So Ja Morant is who we're talking about. It came out during the week that he's been charged with assault. He punched a 17-year-old over a dozen times and then pointed a gun at him after a pickup game. So by all accounts, it sounds like he may have lost his pickup game and was copping a bit of lip, hence the overreaction, I would assume here. So,
who the fuck was he playing against? Matt McClung?
I have no idea. But then followed it up with this morning with doing his Instagram live story and again flashing a weapon in that, and the NBA has kind of stood him down. So
I think the Grizzlies stood it. And the
NBA is investigating into the situations and wants to know what's going on. I think Shannon Sharp had some interesting takes on it as well. Always does. Like, why is he doing this? And
Sharp was talking smack about Morant like a few weeks
ago.
Well,
with his old man, exactly.
Yeah, because he had another altercation.
Yeah, but why is he doing this? He's just signed a deal with Nike as well for a shoe deal, and Kyrie over there is another athlete. He's like, hey, Nike, what's up? So it's interesting, and I've been seeing some rumors floating around that he's more of a private school kid, and I'm not sure, Jim, if you want to look it up, but he's the want-to-be gangster, I think, has been thrown around a fair bit.
The Drake effect, I think. We'll talk about the Drake curse later, but I don't think he's really from the hood either. No. And look, again, preface it with I love what he's doing on the court. Yes. He's only young as well, because he's had this sort of rapid ascendancy to being the face of the Grizzlies franchise, and he was my Smokey for MVP at the start of the year. You have to think that he's still a young kid, and he probably needs some good sort of mentors around him, and just trying to make sure that cash doesn't go to his head, because it's very easy to throw it all away.
Yeah, exactly. And who's in his crew, who's in his entourage. You've seen this story many times before with professional athletes in America, and hopefully it doesn't go the way some of those did. Indeed.
So as it stands, 2 games in, and then indefinite. So he's definitely out for 2 games, and then they'll do their investigation. It's literally it's an Instagram video where there seems to be a gun that's flashed for a few seconds. The thing as well is probably a little bit on the nose is it was coming after a loss to the Denver Nuggets, who currently lead the West. And should you be out partying after losing to what could be the Western Conference, finals moving forward. Maybe it's not the best optics either.
Yeah, and I think with the assault charge during the week as well, they'll probably wait to see results before, like, say, including in that. But I think there's a lot of things happening in a very short period of time that the NBA might step in to cool the heels a little bit.
All we can hope is that he's got some good cornermen in his ear and just getting around him and just saying, look, you're one of the best young talents in the league. Let's keep it that way and try to let the off court kind of stuff stay out of the headlines and keep your on court performances be the reason that people talk about Ja Morant.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, monks, let's talk about the greatest cricketing nation in the world. Australia win the third test over there in indoor. Geez, it would have been nice if we didn't have that collapse back in Delhi, the Delhi disaster, the broom. But speaking of brooms, we've avoided the sweep of the series. And it really came down to an excellent performance from Nathan Lyon. We'll go through his numbers in just a second. But he did have 11 wickets in the test match, and you rarely see it. India batted first, and we had this early dominance with them getting skittled for 109. And Matt Kuhneman, we got to talk about him.
Matt Kuhneman took 5.
3-4 weeks ago, wasn't even on the tip of anyone's tongue. He wasn't even in India, and he gets flown in there later. Played okay, I suppose, in Delhi, and then he goes out and takes 5 for 16, if you don't mind. Some of his polls included both openers in Sharma and Gill. He got Shreyas Iyer, who has definitely got the monkey scratching on his back, and then sort of did a bit of a demolition job on the tail there. The left arm orthodox spinner, 5 for 16 on the biggest stage in the world. We'll talk about the pitch in a second, but it's interesting tactics, and it's always tended to work, from an Indian standpoint, making decks that spin, and it tends to play in their favour. But it's interesting that someone that comes in that doesn't really have any kind of experience at a test level, let alone playing in India, goes through and cleans out their whole top order.
And you probably saw the same with Todd Murphy as well
in his
earlier.
First
So maybe the future of spinning for the Australian side could be sorted with those young fellas coming in. But they've shown they can do the job in favourable conditions, let's say, for spinners in India. And if you want to talk about the pitch, I think maybe India misread it, because there was a pitch that was hastily put together. And maybe on day one, looking at it, they thought, it looks good. The middle is all green, so that'll probably hold up. And, it's the ends look, flat enough that we should be able to bat on this all right. But I think they weren't expecting it to essentially turn to dust within minutes of starting the game, and that could have been to do with the quick, hastily prep. That it really fell apart very quickly at both ends, and that made it very easy for the spinners to get a lot of grip on the ball and a lot of turns, the curators maybe overcooked this one for the Indians, and they ended up making the wrong choice here, batting first.
They use a different soil as well, so it's like a red sort of brick base as opposed to the black ones that we saw in the first and second test. Doesn't seem, obviously none of us have any experience in curating, pitches, but it didn't seem to play that differently really to the first and second tests. It means that we do have 3 tests that have been finished in under 3.5 days. Yeah. So is that where Test cricket is headed? Look, people use the argument, I think we spoke about it earlier in previous EPs, you've got to play to the conditions. It's what every home nation in Test cricket is going to dish up something that's favourable to their own team, but it is an interesting play when someone that comes in who's barely played any international cricket comes through and takes out, some of the best batsmen in the world. Yeah,
I think we said it after the first and second test that Nathan Lyon really hadn't picked it enough yet. And the
definitely in the first, it's sort of like he's finding his feet in the second, and is obviously,
it was unplayable.
Took care of business in this third indoor test. Usman Khawaja continues his sort of gritty resilience at the top of the order there. Travis Head comes back into that opening position with Davey Warner going back home with that fractured elbow and the concussion. And we spoke about it last ep, but Paddy Cummins coming home. Unfortunately, his mother's very unwell. So hoping, that
I don't think
things
there's been
okay with
any
that.
latest news on that.
No.
Either. So I'm probably not expecting Paddy back for the last test either.
And why would you? The series is lost. Our Quicks bowl.
Well, we can draw the series, but
we can draw it, but we can't get the trophy back. And your Quicks are bowling about 10 overs a test match.
Yeah.
So does it really matter when you've got former, captain pre-Sandpapergate and one of the best batsmen of all time in Steve Smith steering the ship? I would say kudos to you, Pat. Yeah. You've got to put family above cricket and just spend that time together.
I agree, and I don't even think he might be back for the start of the one days, which is on the 16th. So
for him, I'd just be thinking Ashes that have a few months.
Yeah, well, the good thing with winning this, we're confirmed in the World Test
Championship.
Match.
True that.
So we don't have to worry about New Zealand losing to Sri Lanka anymore since we have our one match. So we're confirmed in that.
We did have to try to get the best of Ravi Jadeja and Ravi Ashwin. They still took 7 wickets in that first innings, but just some real grit and determination showed by the Aussies there to get to 197. It's still... It could have been a lot better. I remember going into day 2 and thinking, geez, we've got a sniff here. No. I've seen this before. We'll manage to fuck this up. And then it all unplayed in front of our eyes when we lost 6-4-11, boys. An absolute capitulation. It didn't cost us the test match in the end. I suppose you have maybe the inverse of the last point of, these decks getting dished up, and you've got guys like Todd Murphy and Matt Kuhneman taking bulk polls. They also have to go out there and bat, and it looked a little lackluster, didn't it?
Yeah, the tail end's not going to play well against spin. I think the good thing out of all of that was Nathan Lyon. I think was the only one that got out playing a sweep shot. So.
And there was also he was the last wicket, and he's batting with Matt Kuhneman, and he's just gone, fuck this.
Hopefully get one and
get me back out there and give me that rock. Look, if that was his thinking, it turned out pretty well for him. Let's talk about that Indian second innings. They were bowled out for 163. Nathan Lyon, 8 for 64. It's his second time that he's taken 8 for. There's only a handful of Australians that have ever taken 8 for. If you wouldn't mind just bringing up the best bowling figures ever by Australians. You've actually got to go way back, I think, to Mitch Johnson for someone who's not Nathan Lyon to have taken 8 wickets in the Test arena for Australia. We spoke about it just then, about how a lot had been sort of said about him in the first test. Todd Murphy's coming in there in his first test and he's getting more side spin and, you're meant to be the GOAT. What's going on? Reece cemented his place as the greatest Australian off-spinner of all time.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere in a hurry, I would think.
Went nowhere.
Yeah, and I think for Kuhneman and Murphy, it's a perfect time to pick the brains of one of Australia's greatest ever spinners.
Pujara offered a bit of resistance. He had 59 off 142, the old wall. He's very good at that conventional test cricket and kind of something that our boys may have needed to model their game around in that second test where wickets are falling around you and he was just front foot, wall, block out. But it was Nathan Lyon that ended up getting Pujara and we skittled him for 163.
The Steve Smith catch to get Pujara, which I think was the turning point very much in that match, was as the captain, it was a crazy dive to his right after going left to pull it off to get essentially the breaking wicket, and they worked through the rest of the side very, very quickly. So, I think it was a massive moment in this test match.
Let's roll into the Australian run chase. We only needed 76 runs to win. It's these chases which kind of make you more nervous. We should get this done. And the first 10, 15 overs, it was scary out there.
Usman gone second ball. Yeah, it was like, oh, shit.
Here we go. And the old meme, oh, shit, here we go again, GTA. And then Head and Labuschagne both were quite reserved in seeing the ball and trying to get a feeling for what the deck was doing, which was a lot. Yep. And then kind of, I don't know if it was a flicker switch kind of thing. Travis gone, no, I'm going to play my own natural game here, and he started belting Ravi Ashwin back over his head. You'd love to see that as an Australian cricket fan. Look, you can't just quickly, you can't question Ravi Ashwin's credentials as a spinner, but he just
first number one Test bowler in the world at the moment. He just stole it from Jimmy Anderson during the week.
He just grinds my gears, though, man. He just grinds my gears. There was that sequence with Labuschagne where Ashwin had shaped up the ball off 2 steps, and Labuschagne was like, "No, let me, reconfigure here." And the umpire said, "Get a move on," and then Ashwin goes back to his normal run up.
Mind games.
Mind games. Yeah,
I think
unfortunately for him, it didn't work this time.
I think they saw the writing on the wall maybe a little bit in this. I wanted to ask you a question. What did you think of the ball change?
Well, it didn't help. Like, it was after that ball change that things really started to come undone for him, didn't it?
It was interesting because I think talking ahead after the match, or it might have been Amanis, they basically said, "Oh, we didn't have any extra, a message from coming out of the dressing rooms to change a player to go more aggressive or anything." I think they just felt at that time in the match, and maybe with the break while they changed the ball over, that they maybe reassessed where they were, and they're like, "Hey, we're in this. We're now now confident," and then they started going after it. And the runs they had to get quickly tumbled, and unfortunately for Head, he was one short of his 50. But hey,
I don't think he would have given 2 fucks if I'm being honest. On Travis Head, whoever's idea it was to exclude him from that
can't play spin, bro.
Oh man, they got some egg on their head. Seriously, he played that traditional opening role of seeing it off, and you go, geez, this isn't Travis Head, and then he just went bang.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's the change because he is opening instead of, what would he, if he'd played in the first, he would have been, 5th? So whether that was a big difference in the reason why he's been playing well in India. But either way, he's just... what was he, number 4 in the world for Test batsmen? You don't leave him out for Renshaw.
No. Come on. And with due respect to Matt Renshaw, has been in that Australian cricketing system for quite some time. But you don't drop a bloke on a heater, especially after
pick your best sticks.
What he did in the Australian summer. It did not warrant his dropping in that first test. And look, a little bit of I told you so kind of a moment for Travis Head in sealing the deal for the Aussies, who get their first win in India, I believe, in the last 6 years. Obviously, we haven't won a series there for 20 odd years. Again, it just goes back to that Delhi disaster, and why was everyone playing the sweep shot? Apparently, from Ronald McDonald, the skip, the coach, I should say. It wasn't a direction from the coaching staff. Everyone just managed to go out there and all succumb to the sweep shot. We spoke about that in previous episodes. We don't need to revisit it too much. Yeah, do check that out if you so please. But it just seemed like a far more conventional approach to chasing a small target, and when you're expected to win, which often is harder to get things done. It was just executed far more properly.
Yeah, I agree. Jimmy's pulled those stats up. It's interesting to see Warney and McGrath there at 2 and 3, and Nathan Lyon was it not that one. 21, so 21st, I would say.
For best figures ever. How about that? So there's that Maley bloke from 1921 over 100 years ago took a 9 for, and then there's 30 odd blokes that have had 8 for before.
McDermott's in there a few times. Massey as well.
Craziness.
Miss Johnson is there.
Yeah, so that was the last time that someone took an 8 for that wasn't
in this millennium.
Wasn't Nathan Lyon. Yeah. That wasn't Nathan Lyon. So 08. And then since 08, Lyon's done it twice.
Yeah.
When was Frazier? Yeah, he was 08 as well. Household name, Jason Frazier. 8 for 215 on debut. But we win a test in India. How good How good. And, geez, we needed the morale of the Australian public. Everyone, it's interesting, everyone's, it always happens. It's classic from the Australian public, the Australian media, heads need a roll. We've lost 2 games in India.
Change the whole team.
Really difficult conditions. Yep, sack everyone. And then they go out and they say, well, look, we can play Test cricket in India. It's just these tiny, it's half a session, which is losing us Test matches at the moment. So if we can work out how to get through, these half sessions when the pressure starts really building and blokes are dropping off left, right and centre, and we show a little bit of resilience and have, I hate to say it, a Pujara type that can go in there and just be a brick wall and see off a bit of the ball under those pressure circumstances. We're not that far off a series win in Asia or in India.
So do you think we should have the uncomfortable conversation with that maybe Steve Smith's a better captain?
Does it come down to captaincy? No, look, I don't think you can, given what we're just talking about and Kamo's mother being critically unwell
I think it'd
home,
be a terrible way to lose a captaincy, but I would also...
But that has to play on your mind as well.
Yeah.
Like, is cricket the most
exactly.
pertinent thing, in the
maybe
front
that's
of
the
your
reason
brain?
he wasn't playing himself as much. He maybe thought he was down, and that's why he didn't want to bowl himself. Like, he's like, I'm not in the game.
And that shot when he came out and blokes were falling all around him, and he played that slog sweep shot and the ball didn't bounce much and he missed it by half a foot. Given the news of his mother being very unwell, you start thinking, okay, well, maybe that plays into the decision making there.
Yeah,
his mind was somewhere else.
Exactly, and understandable.
Yeah, but you can't hide the fact that this Australian team looked better when they were in the field. Like, I think Steve Smith's decisions on rotating the bowlers and when they did the changes really worked well, and the change of strategy and the guys coming in when they were rotating the spinners and really off-put the Indians and really, I think, broke a lot of their partnerships. And the more I thought about it, it was like, because we talked last week about the killer instinct. I felt like, I feel like they maybe had a little bit more of that. And I wonder if, maybe that's just Steve Smith coming in here and that's kind of the way he used to captain, 10 years ago. It's probably not that long ago, but it was a while ago.
6 in Sandpaper Gate, I think.
Yeah. So, he's captain for a large period there. And he's definitely knows how to win a test match. And I wonder if maybe that was a slight difference in this one.
It's going to be a difficult conversation, but
he though, who's already come out and said
he doesn't want it.
This is Cummins' team, and I'm just filling in here. Which it's a perfect thing to say in this space.
Of course, he has to say that.
I think if they win the second one, results start to speak volumes. I will say though, I think this team is also more like the best Australian team. I think with Cam Green coming in, and like they're fitting in that. Yes, maybe Stark and Cummins not quite like for like, but they are playing that role, and this is probably the best team they've had in India so far. So
I was going to say Cam Green's definitely a big in for them.
Big in head. He played in the second test, but it seemed like the best 11 were selected for this game. I feel like Cummins has been the anointed one. He is it was King Arthur that pulled the sword out of the rock. I feel like he's the one that they've said, look, you're the bloke to take this team forward. Although Smudge is a pretty handy bloke to step in when he is unavailable. Have you seen as well that captaincy hasn't affected Steve Smith's batting? In fact, he averages 65 when he's skip and was averaging 55 before he was skipper. We saw the captaincy take a toll on previous Australian top order batsmen in that their average took a little dive after getting the captaincy, but Smudge just relishes in it.
I definitely agree. So I don't think they're going to make any changes anytime soon, but I don't know. Whether they go back to more of a traditional makeup of the team with the captain being a batsman or not. It would take, sweeping in India would have probably started that conversation, but let's hope the Ashes don't go badly for us in Cummins, and maybe it's a conversation to reevaluate in the future.
Probably a good segue into England and New Zealand. Test history being made. One of the best test matches I've ever witnessed. It going down right down to the last run. New Zealand getting the win by 1 run after being forced to follow on. I think they're the 4th team in the history of Test cricket that have followed on and gone on to win. An absolute, like, this is why people love Test cricket.
Yeah.
Because, you win a T20 game by 1 run. Yeah, cool. Like, that's good entertainment for that evening. The fact that this has happened, it's the second time ever that a Test has gone down to 1 run. This is why people froth Test cricket. This is why us as Aussies, without a dog in the fight, other than kind of going for New Zealand, we saw this play out on day 5 and think this is just enthralling Test cricket.
Exactly, and that's kind of the point. That's why it's 5 days. You want to see it comes down to right at the end after 5 days of hard battling. Yeah, it's a very different predicament than a 2.5 day test. I don't know. Just the general statement on Test cricket, or whether in India, whether the India type of cricket, they prefer the shorter kind of matches, or just
they prefer winning.
Yeah, they prefer winning.
And that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, so they prefer the decks being 3 days old before they show up for the first over. So yeah.
Without sounding like whinging Aussies, sore losers coming off a win. Yeah. That's essentially what's been dished up in India recently, and it backfired. Whereas this Test match was compelling viewing. We have to talk about England and a young man called Harry Brook, 186 off a baseball strike rate of 106 in that first innings. I think we spoke about his Test average being 100. It's now up to about 107, 108. Did you see literally best since Bradman kind of gear as a 23-year-old.
Yeah, he's breaking all kinds of records, and I believe he's going into America to practice some baseball as well.
Oh, really?
I was like, not sure why, but
hand-eye, I don't know. Yeah. Work with some elite athletes. Yeah. You want to pick the brains, I suppose, of the best in the world.
Though I think we should also probably not overlook the fact that Joe Root got 150, another century for him, and he's been fastly chasing down the others in the. What are they? The top 4 batsmen. The big four with their tons. Kohli hasn't added to his. Probably should talk about that a little bit as well. He hasn't added to his in over. Is it 4?
It's coming up on 4 years.
4 years.
It's 4 calendar years. Yeah. But the actual time that's surpassed is coming up in 4 years. I think Joe Root since Kohli last got a ton, Root's had like 12.
Yeah, he's taken over Kohli. I think he's taken Williamson as well, and he's like 1 or 2 behind Steve Smith.
Yeah,
which is crazy numbers. So he's definitely been doing a huge job there for England, but also fuck you, and hopefully get out in the Ashes.
Yeah, that's right. We'll sing his praises against New Zealand. Oh, good on him. Also hadn't played that well in his last few tests. But if you look at his 3-4 year form, it's unbelievable. But when those Ashes roll around, we won't give 2 fucks about Root, breaking down or breaking records. There's also a shout that his trajectory, he may go to number 2 in terms of runs scored all time.
He made it in the top 10, didn't he?
He's into the top 10 now. And Sachin is so far ahead of Punter when it comes to 1 and 2.
Yeah,
15. In front of Callis and then Punter just behind. If you go down there, Root, no, he's...
Can you click on runs, Jimmy?
He's 16th. Yeah, I think that's sorted by runs there, is it not?
No, it's not.
Steve Smith. Hundreds.
Oh, it's sorted by hundreds.
We're just looking at hundreds.
Can he sort it by runs?
He should be able to. He's just got to find it for us.
We better keep talking in the meantime. Jimmy Anderson as well, at 40 years of age, still hooping it around. He's going to be a scary prospect when the Ashes roll around.
They've definitely. I think we've talked about it enough. They had the key figures in place in that team, and they needed to go away and find the young fellas to come in and to build a solid squad. And like we've been saying, it took them 6 months, 8 months to go away and find some guys come in, and now they're playing excellent cricket. So, concerning for us going into the Ashes in the middle of the year, but we I think would still be confident that we can be competitive over there.
I'm more than confident we'll be competitive. Can we go win over there? And after the last Ashes where they got absolutely trounced down here, and I suppose the counter argument to what we go on about and whinge about conditions in India and in other countries. Maybe the inverse is true down here, that we just have these roads that are fast and bouncy and other teams can't compete on them.
Yeah, go to the top there, Jimmy. So Joe Root's there and about 10, I think.
Yeah, I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He
took Steve Waugh. That was the reason.
Yeah, so he's sitting 11th, and will definitely get, barring some kind of horrible injury, he's definitely going to get Joe Wardner, Chanderpaul, Lara, Sangakkara, Cook, and then you start getting into the 13,000s. And looking at that, obviously there's that big gap.
How old is he?
Tendulkar and Ponting. He's only 32, I think.
Yeah. If he keeps this form going for another 3 years, then
you're probably looking at 2.
It should definitely be 2, and then it's how long after that he plays. Because you got to look at that. Well, he's played 129 matches, so he's about 30 short of the guys ahead of him. But Tendulkar played 200, so it's
he debuted when he was 18 and retired when he was 39 or something. So it's pretty hard to catch the little maestro.
Yeah,
but as well, if you look at the tests played there, where Root is 11th, he's 129. The 3 blokes ahead of him in Border, Jayawardena and Chanderpaul are on 156, 149 and 164 respectively. So you're in the sort of ballpark of 25 less tests and only a few hundred less runs.
Yeah, we look at Steve Waugh just behind him.
He's had 168. So the trajectory he is on is unbelievable. He currently sits there with 29 test hundreds. That might be equal with this smudger at the moment. So
you probably look at it. Steve Smith's down there. He's at 30. He's one behind.
One behind. Yeah,
which is what I think he said. He's caught Williamson and Coley up. Because Coley's at 27, hasn't added to it. I think Williams might also be 29, but he's probably further down that list.
I think speaking of Williamson as well, I think he went to the most runs ever by a New Zealander in this test match.
Yeah, 7,000. He's at 26, so he's also taken him over.
He just went, he did. So he went past Ross Taylor. So Kane Williamson is officially the highest run scorer of Kiwi fame of all time.
All right, that's enough sucking off Joe Root. Let's talk about the Aussie girls.
Well, I was going to try to make a segue from sucking off Joe Root, but I think I might let this one. I may
through to the keeper.
May let this one go through to the keeper. Often, in my sort of third grade kind of cricketing experience, I'd try to let one go through to the keeper and take the top of my off peg.
Yeah.
So that's right. So let that one go through to the keeper. But something is 100%, 110% confirmed. The Aussie girls are top of the women's cricketing arena and have been for essentially the entirety of women's international cricket. It was their 6th time that they've won the World Cup. Some of these girls have won 5 in Meg Lanning and Alyssa Healy. And Meg Lanning is the skip.
Because I was saying during the week, after they won this, her record, her resume as captain of wins against the likes of Ricky Ponting and Steve Smith and having won more major tournaments than the lads had, which is kind of interesting. But it is interesting. It just shows their dominant period.
Yeah, I feel it's a little apples and oranges as well, those kind of comparisons, and not to take anything away from the girls in this massive achievement, but they're just head and shoulders above everyone else. There was actually the semi-final, which was a lot closer, and the Indian skipper, her bat essentially digging into the ground, and that's what sort of catalysed their capitulation in the semi-final. They did this one relatively easy in Cape Town against the host nation, and our champions of the world, Beth Mooney, at the top there with 74 not, pretty much just controlling the whole innings. And then who did the job for us with the ball? If you wouldn't mind. It was at a horrible time. I think it was midnight on a Sunday into a Monday.
It looks pretty shared.
Wickets pretty much shared there. Yep. But the Aussie girls, it's kind of like, how long can they keep this run going? Now, obviously, those girls that we just spoke about in Meg Lanning and Elise Perry and Alyssa Healy are starting to get a little bit long in the tooth, but you've got girls like Ash Gardner and Beth Mooney and Talia McGrath coming through who will kind of receive the baton in the relay and lead this team forward to hopefully more continued success.
Yes.
Speaking of a few of those girls, the Women's Premier League currently just kicked off. I think overnight it might have been the first one. It's a bit of a not the best start for our Aussie girls. I think I shouted Ash Gardner a beer for her over $500,000 payday with the Gujarat Titans. She got a golden quacker, and poor Beth Mooney. It looked kind of innocuous. That's not English.
Yeah, close enough.
Innocuous.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm not going to try
Let's go with that. She went to go take off for a run and hurt her ankle and is off for scans, but it didn't really roll or anything. So be interesting to see what happened there. Monks, if you wouldn't mind clicking on that, the Mumbai Indians ladies got off to a really solid start, winning this game by 143 runs. Scrolling down. Yeah, so Ash Gardner and yeah,
expensive.
She opened the gardening.
New term for fielding.
She got out the secateurs, the lawnmower. There's petrol in the whippersnipper. My goodness. Ash Gardner, gardening. You can see
I know
where my brain went there. My goodness. Ash Gardner of elite hedging fame. A little lackluster. Look, there's lots of games coming up, and it's nice to see the girls out there on this big stage, and this Women's Premier League financially remunerating some of these girls for all the effort that they put in.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
Before we get stuck into the rugby league, so we've got the UFC 285 pay-per-view kicking off, and Bo Nickel up first. Big raps on him. We'll see if he can live up to it as his first main card fight for him.
Bloke's paying $1.05, isn't he, to win this fight?
Crazy background in wrestling, and probably one of the most dominant American wrestlers in recent memory. See if he can get the job done here.
You will have to forgive us if you're listening back to this and listening to our astute observations as to how the St George Illawarra Dragons will fare this year, and then you hear it's probably because something's happened in the fights that we're watching.
That's because they're going to get the spoon. But anyway.
First round knockout. All right, Bucks, if you wouldn't mind getting us underway with some rugby league. The best soundbite on the internet at the moment. I've just gone alphabetically. That's how my sort of OCD brain works. We are doing the Sydney teams. If you want to see us talk about the non-Sydney teams, we did do that last pod. Otherwise, we would have a 3-hour podcast on the NRL teams for the year. Let's start off with these Canterbury Bulldogs. Cameron Ciraldo comes in, understudy of Ivan Cleary there at Penrith. Big raps. Big signings we'll talk about in just a second, but we can't avoid the elephant, or we can't ignore the elephant in the room, being that they only won 7 games last year and finished 12th. They started 2-11. So if it wasn't for them sort of sorting a little bit of their shit out later in the season, could have been a lot lower.
True. But what did they finish the year before that?
Spoon. So they've gone spoon. So they've gone spoon, 12th. If my
Top eight.
Yeah, maybe.
Top 8.
We do, again, this is Sunday. They did get towed up by Manly yesterday. Maybe that will weigh into the way that we approach this.
At Tommy Durbo.
Yeah, DCE.
Yes.
Big signings in Viliami Kikau, the left edge there from Penrith, and Reid Marnie. I think that's probably the... not to take anything away from what Kikau does, but we talk about the importance of spines and Reid Marnie, B's dick away from playing for Queensland last year. He's an excellent addition to that Bulldogs roster. Hayes Perham coming over from the Eels, couldn't really get a gig playing fullback there behind Gutho.
So who played one from the other day?
Perham, yeah. And look, it's only one game, you can't judge too much, but a little bit lackluster. Big names in, lots and lots of sort of established guys out
Yeah, I think Josh Jackson's probably the biggest loss for them.
in his retirement. But you also have to think of guys like Paul Vaughan, before before a silly barbecue a few years back, a regular in the New South Wales and Australian teams. Matt Duffy, their fullback, goes, so that's why Perham's got to come in. They lose Jeremy Marshall-King, so that's two guys out of the spine that go, and then guys like Jack Hetherington, Brent Naden, Aaron Shoup, and Brandon Wakeham. The other thing you have to consider is these injuries. These poor... Luke Thompson. He did the dreaded Liz Frank, has had surgery. Saw a thumbs up of him lying in the hospital bed there with the big cast around his foot. It's close to season. They're a weird injury to rehab. Sometimes it's...
I'd say season. Even after healing and then try to... a big man putting weight on that kind of foot, it'll take time to get back into football shape as well.
Yeah.
I think you write the whole year off.
The Liz Frank ligament, people starting to become more aware, I suppose, of the names behind these injuries, given the internet and
the amount of football players that get injured.
Yeah, exactly. It's minimum sort
Our
of
medical expertise.
That's right. At least one bloke's in the industry. So you're looking at a minimum of 3 to 4 months. That I think that is conservative.
Yeah.
I think you. Well, no, it's the opposite of conservative. I think that's aggressive.
Yes.
In the industry.
I thought you were talking about Sean a second ago.
I think you're looking at most of the season.
Yeah.
Most of the season. This is the injury that ended Dane Swan's career from the AFL. You do hear about people that do it and their foot's not the same for a year. So
exactly.
We will see what happens there and wish him a speedy recovery. A bloke that should be back in sort of 5 to 6 weeks is Tavita Pangai Jr. We know how devastating he can be, but he's got a calf strain. And I just want to talk about their leadership approach here.
Yep.
We'll talk about the AFL in a little bit, but you saw the Brisbane Lions. Half their team is in the leadership group. The Dogs have gone not quite that extreme, but they've got 6 blokes in the leadership group. So Josh Addo-Carr, Viliami Kickout, Max King, leadership group members. Ray Faitala Mariner, he's actually the club captain, but not the captain on the field. So he's sort of in charge of culture and
HR.
Yeah, HR. There you go. And they've gone co-captains in Matt Burton and Reid Marnie. Excellent football players, but does that sort of speak a little bit to where this club's at, in that a bloke that you bring in this year and a bloke that you brought in last year are you co-captains, or do you just want your best footy brains running the show?
Yeah, I think maybe it could be youth as well, because I wonder why they didn't give Matt Burton the captaincy off the bat. And it may be because he's a young guy still trying to find his feet in the NRL. So support him with Reid Marnie, who's been around a bit longer, was around the Origin camp a little bit too. So, and also still a bit of a young fella, so maybe between the two of them kind of sharing that load a bit more.
Both very young. I just looked up. Marnie's 24 and Burton is 22. Yeah. So a lot of responsibility there for two blokes whose combined age is Tom Brady.
Yes.
We'll look at their spine quickly. So Hayes Perham has got the fullback jersey. Burton, Flanagan, good to see them going with him. And
hopefully it lasts, I think.
Yeah, the chop and change mentality last year, I didn't understand
which is probably why they started so slow to the year. And it's probably why I think they'll probably start the year slow as they kind of work out with the new guys coming in, what that team is and what their best combination is. And then that's how they'll have a decent run towards the back end of the year. But they got to sort it out sooner rather than later. You can't, of your first 10, losing your first 10 is makes it very difficult to play late in the year.
I have them finishing 9th. I think that they're going in the right direction. The Gus Gould effect, you can see, how much of a genius he is when it comes to roster management and getting guys over to the club. Yep. I just think that they're still just off top 8 kind of stuff.
I had them 8th. And I had the Raiders last week with 9th. And, one of those two will be the guy that sneaks into the top 8. That's kind of why I've got them both there in that position. So I've gone one ahead of you that I think, maybe they sneak in. But like we said, they need to find their feet very quickly to be able to do that.
Did you come up with any?
Yeah, no, same as you, Peps. I have them coming in at 9th. They've definitely got a lot of ins over the last couple of years. It's good to see them sort of slowly making their way back up the ladder, but Yeah, again, they're probably going to be on that verge of the 8.
I feel like their fans are probably hopeful for top 8, but you've also got to consider, if you've won the Spoon 18 months ago and you've gone to 12th, and then if you can go to 9th, and then really start as Marnie and Burton take control of this team and get another year under their belt, and then you bring in a guy like Stephen Crichton next year, roster management and elite sport, you look in these 3-4 year kind of blocks and try to look forward. I think that Dogs fans, after a fair bit of heartache over the last sort of 4 or 5 years, have got a bit to look forward to. That rolls us into the Cronulla Sharks. They finished second last year, won 18 games, but they were 2 and done come finals time, losing to the Cowboys and South. They're paying $13 to win the whole thing this year. That's only just behind, I think, the top 3, who are all kind of even Stevens in Penrith, Chooks, and Melbourne Storm. And then I think Souths are just ahead of them. Craig Fitzgibbon obviously has done a lot with this group. Not many big name signings. Probably Oregon Kafusi is probably their biggest name coming in. He's a middle who's coming over from the Eels, and then sort of a lot of young talent coming up through their New South Wales Cup team. And then a few big names leaving, but kind of a juxtaposition,
changing the guard,
if you will, of old and young. They lose old heads in Andrew Fafita and Aidan Tolman, and then young guns in Lockie Miller and Luke Metcalf. Nico Hines, probably we have to talk about him. Dally M Player of the Year last year, calf strain. Early reports was it was just going to be round 1. It's maybe going to be a little bit, more than that as well. Do you want to risk him? It's a 24 game, regular season. Do you need to rush him back? Braden Trindle obviously isn't Nico Hines, but he's a reasonable bloke to step in that 7 jersey, and unfortunately, sort of been in the media for the wrong reasons. Mum in a little bit of hot water there. So again, back to Pat Cummins, that's got to play into your mind. Stuff happening off the field.
Yeah, he'll need whatever time he needs, and then he'll be back.
How about, we spoke about Cam Munster and how tough he is. How about your 2 co-captains being 2 of the toughest nuts getting around in the NFL? I've done that. That's classic. In the NRL, in Dale Finucane, the big bomber, and Wade Graham, blokes that definitely wear their heart on their sleeve and can put a big shot on. And we saw that last night.
Wayne Graham could be in a little bit of trouble.
I think so. We'll talk about that in just a second. This spine is reasonable, I think, when they're fully healthy. In Will Kennedy, maybe one of the more underrated kind of guys, wearing the 1 jersey in the NRL. Matt Moylan, Nico Hines, and Blake Brayley. We saw CSC for Talakai come along last year. We saw Toby Rudolph come along last year. They definitely won't be intimidated by other teams, I don't think, with some of those names that we've been through. I'll get our ladders up here, boys. I think last year people were maybe a little surprised at how well they played.
Yeah, I think, did we say like 6-ish last year?
Yeah, I feel like we had them sort of top 8, but didn't really expect them to, be pushing for a premiership. Obviously, need to sort out how they play in finals football. I've got them finishing top 4. I've got them 4th this year.
I had them a little bit lower at 7, and that only really is probably because of the product of the teams in front of them. It was hard to kind of rate them over what the Eels did last year, Souths as well, and then you got the perennials and Storm, Roosters and Penrith, and then I was debating about Cowboys and Eels, whether they flip spots, but the Cowboys still looking like a quality side. So I think they, from 1 through down to 7 on my list, though anyone in that list could probably win a premiership. So,
Max?
I've got him in a 4th as well. Although after last night with Graham probably missing a few weeks, as you mentioned,
did they win that game last night?
No, they lost. And pretty handedly to a depleted South Sydney team.
18 to 27 there. They might have a slow start to the season, which might push them down a couple of spots.
Before you go on to the next one, Bo Nickel has had a quick day in the office. First round submission, as expected. Got the early takedown, got the choke, and that's all she wrote. So.
Red nuts in the UFC. There's not too many of them. Does Connor count as red?
Hard to say.
Probably not.
Let's talk about Manly. The big talking point from last season was that debacle following Pridegate. If you wanted to feel any less confident about humanity, jump in, a Daily Telegraph comment section or anything following that. No one wanted to have a reasonable sort of level-headed debate, which either side of the fence you sat on. It was either you're an idiot, you're a bigot, you're a piece of shit, blah, 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 or keep politics out of sport, religion out of sport, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
We're a sports podcast. Let's not try to dwindle on that thought too much. But one thing is for certain, that completely derailed their season last year.
Rugby league's going to rugby league.
It was really the tipping point, obviously with the injuries that they had as well.
You're missing...
They were there or thereabouts, and then as soon as Pride Week happened, it just,
we can see
crumbled.
the guys that wanted to get out of the club post that very quickly. And then, Hasler kind of getting thrown on the bus and was like, fuck this, I'm out. So,
Scapegoat, man.
Yeah,
True,
and then, getting replaced by Seabold. So, be interesting to see what they can do. Can they rebuild as a team and go forward? I'm not a huge fan of Seabold as a coach, but
what's up?
Back in the days when you went for the Broncos.
Yeah, well, he got handed a pretty good Souths team and then went to Brisbane and made it implode. So I'm not sure Manly's going to be any easier. But they 100% just reside on what they do with Turbo. They got to have a minimum the twin turbo going for
Could be triple turbo.
Yeah.
I know nothing about cars, but I suppose triple turbos isn't a thing.
Oh, you could probably pull it off, but it's probably overkill. Yeah, exactly. So, that's really the core of their team, and one of those being Tom is when healthy, probably the best player in the NRL. So, that can take you from last place to top four, as we saw from when. Not last season,
2021.
Season 4, just a dominant.
Bloke won the Dally M and he played 18 games or 16 games. He was head and shoulders above anyone else. And it's pretty crazy when you've got guys like Nathan Cleary and James Tedesco and that in the league when Tommy Turbo was so far ahead of anyone else in 2021. We saw bits of it yesterday. We'll talk about the game in just a second. They did finish 11th last year, winning just 9 games, 7 out of their 15 losses occurring in a row after the Pride jersey
they didn't
debacle.
win a game after it, so...
They're paying $18, which is kind of sort of lower end of the top 8 this year to win the whole thing. Cooper Johns is going to replace Kieran Foran. He got the 6th jersey yesterday.
Did you see much of him yesterday?
Son of the GOAT, Matthew Johns, brother of Andrew, someone I've never heard of personally. Just
Who?
Well, Matty Johns of
little thing,
funny, Reg Reagan, Trent the flight attendant. Makes Sunday nights in winter. Absolutely something to look forward to.
His brother's just immortal, who cares?
Yeah, that's right. He's good. One's good at footy, one's good at talking rubbish. And out of 3 guys here who are not good at footy and not good at talking rubbish but wouldn't mind to get better at
most of it's rubbish.
Practice.
Anyways, Cooper in his own right, pretty good footballer, has been through the Storm system as well. So we
couldn't break into that squad because of a few guys playing ahead of him.
But history tells us guys that leave the Storm to go play at other clubs tend to go pretty well.
Yes.
He's filling the role of Kieran Foran, who's off to the Titans. Marty Tapau leaves. Dylan Walker leave. Not heaps of ins and outs for Manly. There's a fair few of the Sydney teams, actually, that are running with a similar kind of top 30 as they did last year. We've spoke about it to death. We probably will speak about it with another team that comes around who's probably not as good on paper. But if Tommy Turbo plays... could be world beaters. If he's out, hard to replace.
If he plays the full season, they'd probably finish in the top 4. He's that much of a difference maker. And I think I had them outside the 8.
Which is interesting.
But I think that was because of my original kind of thinking of where the club was, not my love of Seabold, and the fact he was off dealing with his hamstring. And I think Gus sorted it out, made the comment well yesterday. Him being in for round one is a huge uppercut against the Bulldogs. And yeah, that's the difference. That's what I think they're Manly. Where did I have them? 12th?
12th, yeah.
I think they're a 12th squad. Add Turbo, they're top 4. So that's kind of where my thinking is. And since he's back and healthy, watch out.
I've got them 8th. When they're on again, could probably push anyone in the NRL, but it is a long year. Recurrent hamstrings, you don't like the look of that either.
He's probably going to play Origin.
The Origin
play a lot of football.
Well, the Origin toll as well. Does DCE retain that 7 jersey? We'll be talking about that in the middle of the year, and we'll definitely talk about that when we get to Penrith. I think on paper a pretty good team, but just need a few things to go right for them. I've got them sitting in 8th spot. Marks, have you got them in the top 8?
I do. I have bumped them up to 7th, just to be different. But yeah, solely relies on Tommy Turbo to make it through the season whole, really. Do like the addition of Johns. I reckon wasn't really able to prove himself at the Storm. I did have a few games there. All right. So yeah, it'll be good to see him. And foreign leaving's probably good in a way that's kind of like gotten rid of that distraction. Never really rated foreign, so I think that's probably a good position.
He had a couple of good years when they ran into the finals and won a final, but he's been off injured and kind of really hasn't recaptured his best.
Yeah.
But he's a serviceable
probably a top
veteran, so
yeah, probably top bloke, but yeah.
He does your job, but he's not what he once was.
Ros into last year's runners-up in the Parramatta Eels. They finished 4th on the ladder and then strung together a really good finals series. They won 16 games last year. Really got blown off the park in the grand final by Penrith in that first half. Under Brad Arthur, they're paying $14 to win the whole thing. Few ins, pretty much their whole back row was new on Thursday night. They picked up Josh Dury from the Bulldogs, Jermaine Hopgood, we're going to talk about him in a second, from Penrith, Jack Murchie from the Warriors, and probably their biggest signing is former Raiders hooker in Josh Hodgson. He is coming off an ACL, so it's going to be interesting to see how he goes with that. A lot of outs as well. Yes. So we spoke about Kafusi of state between California and Washington fame. Reid Marnie is close to irreplaceable. Yep. Isaiah Papali'i, arguably the best edge back rower in the game last year, leaves. And then sort of lesser known names, but regular starters in Murata Niokore, Tom Opicic, Hayes Perham and Ray Stone. So a lot of reshuffling for Para.
Well, I think also in the back line, in the back row, there's got a few outs there too with Sean
Injuries,
Lane and Ryan Madison also suspended.
Suspended from that crusher tackle where he got 3 weeks from last season. And Sean
Could
Lane
have been a fine, but they wanted the suspension.
Weird, hey? Yeah, we spoke about that last year. It seems like forever ago, doesn't it? It's, it's nearly 6 months.
He's probably doing the extension out back and needed the cash, so they took the 3 games.
Interesting, Ryan. I'll tell you what. Look, to just go down the sort of appreciator of good rig chat that I like. It's generally me that brings it up, but Ryan Maddo, one of the hottest blokes in the NRL, just quietly. Some good Warwick Farms on him, that's for sure. And Sean Lane really established himself as a good edge back rower last year, so they will miss them. The 11, 12, 13 that they went with on Thursday night was Matt Dury, Bryce Cartwright, Jermaine Hopgood. They have to believe, because they beat Melbourne twice, they beat Penrith twice last year. They were bees dick away from beating Melbourne on Thursday night.
Yeah, and we've been giving them the pretenders tag for many years, and they
lost twice the Tigers last year as well.
Yeah, exactly. So they play to their competition. So we really need them to, like we've been saying, take that next step. And for them, that's putting it all together and then winning a final. Interesting. I think we reported a week or so ago, Mitch Moses saying he's staying with the Eels. That's kind of been back up in the air, and it's all confusing. I wonder if the Tigers come in last minute with up their offer or not, but there's nothing, I guess, officially on paper where he's going next year. So now we're into week 1 and don't have any certainty of what Moses is doing next year and whether that plays on Eels football going forward, and where his mind's at. But we'll see. He's a professional. We'll see. Assume he will do the best he can, but I don't think they've had anything official on his contract.
But 100% that has to play into the team mentality moving forward. Mitch Moses had a breakout year last year, played Origin, really established himself with Dylan Brown as one of the premier half pairings in the NRL.
Yeah, and you look at their spine with the King, and then they've got...
it's a good spine.
Yeah.
Like Gutho, Brown, Moses, Hodgson.
Yeah, if Hodgson can stay healthy for the whole year,
that's up there with one of the better spines
exactly.
in the NRL. The way that I graded them was a little bit down. I think I've got them 7th.
Yeah,
just because of all those outs and the few unknowns in how's Hodgson going to go as an older bloke coming off an ACL. Is Mitch Moses there next year? So I've got him 7th. I also tipped him to beat Melbourne on Thursday night. I wasn't far off, but
it was a good game of footy.
Yeah, it was a great game, and we will talk about round 1 in just a second.
Yeah.
But again, it goes back to so many teams that have gotten better.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I don't know if Para have.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I had them. You know, I had them and the Cowboys in 3 or 6 spot. So one of those I will maintain and be as good as they were last year, and one of those I think falls off a little bit. So I've said the Eels will be 6th and the Cowboys to keep them going and be 3rd. But I can just see with the same conversation with both those squads that they were played probably overs last year, and wish one of those can maintain that level of competitiveness going forward.
Yeah.
That's where you got them.
Yeah.
Big slide.
Yeah. I mean, that's more a product of the other teams really as well.
Yeah.
Like we obviously had a few teams set in stone last week when we went through the teams outside of Sydney.
Yeah.
And with the teams left in Sydney to go, I've had to put the Eels down at 8th. So still making the 8th, so could probably make a good run. But back on Moses. If Herbie Farnsworth is anything to go by, it doesn't matter where you're going to next year. We'll probably still play a good year of footy, regardless.
That's probably a good segue to talk about Penrith.
Yeah, Penrith, they dropped an opening game at Bluebet Stadium. Look, it's one game of rugby league. I've still got them finishing first. I think, cat's out of the bag. Is it first unanimously? Have you got the
no, I think I had them 1.
So we all see them wrapping up the minor premiership and playing for rugby league history in trying to get a three-peat. It hasn't happened in our lifetime. Parramatta was the last time that it's happened.
I feel like maybe Brisbane did it, but then I'm thinking maybe that was Super League.
And I think even accounting for Super League, I think it was 2. I think I might have put it. I did a little bit of research on this. Did I put it in the notes? Let's have a look. So the teams that have gone back to back are the Chooks in 18-19. The Broncos did it in 92-93 and 97-98, with one of them being Super League.
Yeah, okay.
Raiders 89-90, Dogs 84-85. So that's going backwards since Para did it in 81, 82, 83. So it hasn't been done for 40 years.
Yeah, very hard to do.
They lose Viliami Kikau and Api Coruscant. It's hard to say that on paper they are better than they were last year. In fact, I think we can all agree in saying on paper they're not as good as they were last year.
Definitely taking a step back.
Yeah, and I think that showed on Friday night as well. They're kind of still trying to work through their structures a little bit on the edge, and especially out of hooker as well. So I think the team overall is still good enough to be very competitive. It might take
more than competitive. We've all got them finishing first.
Yeah, but so I think as in like the first month might be a little bit rough. They might go 2 and 2.
Just sort the team out.
But yeah, once they kind of get past that period, I think they'll be good, and then they'll just probably go on a 20 win streak and then roll straight into the finals again.
And I think that speaks volumes to where this club is at. They won all 4 major grades last year. They've got the best junior development program in the NRL at the moment. So a lot of that is going to be on these younger blokes coming up. They also brought in Luke Garner and Zach Hosking to try to fill those big shoes of Viliami Kikau. Garner got the nod on Friday night and looked a little bit lackluster. So that's going to be an interesting void there. And then they brought in Tyrone Peachy from the Tigers to be their utility. They're kind of a victim of their own success in that you develop all these players, nearly all of them played together, growing up, and then you start having this success. That means that they demand more money.
Yeah, well, it's the problem of the salary cap. The other teams want to get better, so they'll offer more money and pinch the best players. So.
And you can't actually pay them unders. I actually learnt that from Bloke in a Bar, a really good NRL podcast.
Well, I think
Denon was breaking down the fact that once they start getting these accolades, you actually can't pay them unders,
which is a very Roosters strategy, because I think Sonny Bill was a classic recent example. When he came back, they wanted to pay him fuck all, but they're like, well, the Tigers will probably pay him X amount because of his resume and his repertoire to play for them. So, it's got to be a fair deal as well. He can't just be there being paid peanuts to fill a role. So the NRL at least is smart in that regards, that they protect the player a little bit, but they're also maintaining that they get a decent wage.
Yep. Looking at those outs, that list is extensive. We've already spoken about Kikau and Coruscant, but they also lose Sean O'Sullivan, who was very good in Nathan Cleary's absence last year. Jermaine Hopgood absolutely lit it up for the Eels. I think he'll be a really good addition for the Eels. Robert Jennings will be a starting centre there at the Dolphins. Charlie Staines will be a starting winger at the Tigers. Obviously Kikau and Coruscant are the big names, but that's quality 5 starters and your backup halfback that go.
Yeah, they're going to struggle a little bit, and I think you've got it there. The salmon of
we got a dog fame.
Well, he and Luai had a blow up after the match as well. So it was reported that a heated exchange, as you will, not a melee, but a heated exchange. Probably some frustrations out of that game. Going back to what I said before, of teams trying to find its feet, find its structures, and they're probably not, working out exactly. And Luai's got to kind of find out how he fits into that, considering he doesn't have Kikau outside him to make him look excellent. So we'll have to see how that team progresses.
Taylor May did his ACL in the World Club Challenge. Really came along last year. That does open the door for Taruva, the 20-year-old Fijian. He looks pretty classy, and if Penrith's anything to go off, it's sort of next man up mentality. I do wonder about that origin period when you are likely
half to more of the team disappears. So
you're definitely going to lose Cleary, Yo, and probably Luai, and then you're going to lose Liam Martin, and then there'll be other blokes putting their hand up around that.
Yep.
Are you able to get through those 3 games and whatever injuries that may or may not occur, touch wood, without Sean O'Sullivan? They bring in Jack Cogger, Shaman Salmon. I don't know if those guys are going to, have that ability to carry this team the way that Sean O'Sullivan did in Cleary's absence last year.
Yeah. So, they're probably not going 20-4 again this year, but I think they'll still win predominantly a large amount of their matches and finish first.
I feel like in this segment we've both basically just laid out all these reasons why they won't be very good, but we've all got them finishing first. And when you look at
heart, not head.
Well, when you look at the spine in Dylan Edwards, Jerome Luai, Nathan Cleary, and Mitch Kenny's pretty handy. That Sonny Luke goes okay as well. And then you look at their other positions in Isaiah Yo, the best ball playing middle,
row,
in the NRL. James Fisher-Harris is arguably one of the best middles in the league. Critter, Isaac Tungo.
You didn't even mention Toto, bro.
Toto, origin winger. Yes, they've had a lot of people go. Yes, they are a victim of their own success. Yes, if they do manage to break this 40-year-old sort of hoodoo of three-peats, it's probably the hardest that they'll have to work out of all of them. Yep. But we've all got them finishing first, and that's just a testament to how good Cleary and Yo and the likes are.
Yeah, agree.
Do you think during the origin period, because of some of the outs and the slow start we are anticipating they're going to have, like they might not have a similar sort of call up to origin as they did last year, where you might see a few of them like sort of...
Great question. Like I think Toto, maybe Adokar beats him out. That could be a fair conversation. Maybe... depending on how Luai does, maybe Luai misses out. Like Nathan Cleary and Yo are probably the certainties. barring Yo, of course, being hurt. But if he's hurt, then he's missing out.
Yeah.
I think those two certainties and the others, like, yes, you could make conversations that, yeah, there's probably another dude at another club, maybe not winning as many games, but outperforming them.
And that thought crossed my mind in that Luai probably does cop a fair bit of stick in that, oh, well, if he wasn't playing, with Cleary and Yo and the rest of it, he wouldn't be as good as he is, and he doesn't deserve to wear the 6 for the Blues. I have seen that sentiment getting around. I don't think Freddie in his right mind is going to break up that partnership.
Not in a hurry.
True.
No. Someone would have to play absolutely out of their skin to take that 6 jersey off Jerome Luai. Yeah. So the Origin period, I do see them losing Luai, Cleary, Martin, Yo at a minimum. Yeah. And then probably To'o, because the other winger was Daniel Tupou last year. Yeah. So it could be To'o and Addo-Carr.
Exactly.
So you're looking at 4, maybe 5 guys to go to Origin.
We think 4 or 5, at the lowest it'd be 2.
Yeah.
But even that's probably a stretch.
No, Liam Martin will play Origin. I think at the lowest it's 3, barring injury.
Yeah.
But yeah, having said that, they're still the premiership favourites. It is kind of close.
Got a great coach
with them and the Chooks and Melbourne Storm, but we've all got them finishing first, and it's going to be interesting to see. History doesn't repeat itself that often. It's a long time between drinks, and in the salary cap era as well, you have to think that no one has actually won 3 in a row in the NRL format as it is today.
Yeah. Not even the Storm of cheating fame. So.
They weren't able to do it with brown paper bags and
some books.
Yeah, that's right.
Hiluxes, etc.
Let's talk about South Sydney. They finished 7th last year, although did make the prelim finals. They were really dominant in their wins over the Chooks and the Sharks in those elimination finals. Jason Demetrio was his first year last year as a head coach, so in his sophomore year, to use an American term, this year. They're probably the lightest in terms of ins and outs. The only sort of big in that's worth talking about is Shaq Mitchell, who's up from New South Wales Cup. And look, boys, you don't want to fat shame. You don't want to fat shame in today's society. Yeah. The bloke was still kicking around and playing New South Wales Cup at 170 kgs, which is nuts to think that he was even getting through games of NRL and, in the 8 interchange era at that weight, carrying that around. But he's really, really trimmed down. He's Latrell's older brother. A lot of people struggle to comprehend that. And he's 26. So, again, Latrell has accomplished so much, and he's 24.
Yeah, Latrell's so young.
Had a run in the Indigenous All-Stars. I think he's played 4 first-grade games for South as it is. So it's going to be interesting to see how they go with brothers in their best 17.
How tall is he? He's only
191, yeah. So they've got his playing weight there listed at 118 now. I was reading, I think I read it off his Wikipedia, actually. Yeah, so 2008. So it's not like he lost 50 kilos last year.
Yeah, no.
It's apparently he was playing for Wyong Roos at 175 kgs.
He did say he lost 25 kilos last year, so
he's nuts, hey.
He's still a decent amount, mate.
Yeah.
So, and what goes on in your head? Like at 25, 26, you're probably thinking, the NRL's past me. Like I'll just kick around and earn a bit of money playing New South Wales Cup, but I'm never going to be my brother. And then something's got into his head, and he's gone, "Oh, fuck this! Like South are in a really good place at the moment. I want to be in that first grade team." And he's dropped all this weight, and looks like he could be a reasonable middle in the NRL. Speaking of, their forwards have been absolutely decimated through the preseason and last night. Saliva Havili has a foot tendon problem. He's out for a few months. Hamet Saleh is out for a few weeks. And then Jai Arrows had these recurrent hamstring problems. We saw that last night, as well as Tavita Totola having a head knock in the first 15 seconds and missing. So Shaq Mitchell might have to step up for South. A bloke that will and did step up last night is Lachlan Ilias, having that big shoes to fill of Adam Reynolds. Looked okay at times last year.
Yeah, well, he's got to take another year, another step. He's got to kind of fill that role and be I guess the serviceman, he's got to give good service to Walker and Mitchell and the like, because that's where all their points come from. So if he can do that job and help those guys get into the right sort of spots they need to be, then they'll score a lot of points.
That spine is very, very good.
Yeah.
Like even outside, a 20-year-old being your 7, and we'll talk about the Chooks in a second because it's kind of similar. But when any side with Trell Mitt, Cody Walker, and Damien Cook's going to do a fair bit. And
do you know he does beach sprints? Bro?
Yeah, bro. He's a beach sprinter. Sprinter,
what?
bro. Never heard that one before. Anyone that's watched Live Golf, do you know they don't get paid if they... I just said Live Golf. Anyone that's watched Full Swing, do you know they don't get paid if they don't make the cut? Live Golf. Saudis are in my head.
I've heard their viewership is well down as well, so struggling a little bit.
Really?
Any golf inserted into South Sydney chat.
Yeah, sorry.
Where do we see them
I think
finishing this year, boys? Yeah, I've got them top 4 as well. I think
4. No, I had them just out. I had them 5th.
You had them 5th. I've got them 3rd because I think on their day, like, can just play lights out rugby league, and Latrell Mitchell, when he wants to, just turn a game on its head, is arguably the most impactful player there is in the NRL as it stands.
I feel Souths of all the teams are one of those teams that could go through the year up and down, but they'll make the 8, and then when it comes final times, that's where you got to look out. So they're always, they could win any game at any time.
We haven't even spoken about their skipper, Cameron Murray, one of the toughest middles getting around. Kean Cologne-Matangi's on the verge of playing Origin. Campbell Graham scored a double last night, had World Cup experience.
Great squad.
Yeah, they're very, very good on paper. I expect reasonable things, and in those tiers with the Chooks and Penrith probably being tier 1, Melbourne, they're probably tier 1.5. I'd have South just that little step probably behind them, but I've got them actually finishing ahead of Melbourne in 3rd place.
I've gone a little bit overs off for them. I have put them in at 2nd.
Yeah.
I think, again, it's similar to Manly. Like, as long as they can keep their fullback healthy, they'll do very well.
If they've got a healthy squad, they can win a lot of football games.
Yeah, that's it. That being said, Latrell Mitchell has gone in for scans on his knee.
I saw him struggling a bit last night.
A little bit of a niggle.
He's played with his knee taped up a fair bit as well.
PCL. Yeah, so...
It might be a different conversation next week if Trell Mitts, even if it's just a low grade MCL and you miss your first 4 weeks, with Trell out.
If they go under 500, then
we saw Blake Taft being an okay, replacement, but not Latrell Mitchell. In fact, probably the gap between Turbo and Ruben Garrick, who was stepping in for Manly last year, is probably closer in talent. With respect than the difference between Trell Mitt and Blake Taft. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully it's nothing too serious there for Trell Mitt.
Better question. Did Johnson play yesterday, and did he score any tries?
He played, and I don't think he scored. He's like $1.50 to score per game, which if you got on every game last year, you probably would have made a fair bit of bank. I don't think he scored because Campbell Graham scored twice. Cologne-Matangi scored.
Yep. And Elias scored. Scored first try.
Yeah. If he gets another 20 this year, I think he goes number 2.
Yeah, so we're going to keep an eye on him. He, barring a horrific injury, will be the top scorer in NRL history.
Yeah, he should definitely be.
All right, boys, the moment we've been waiting for. Sean's been he's been pouring concrete in his boots, ready to kick this boot absolutely into our sides. The only non-Dragons fan on this panel. A lot of the media has the St. George Illawarra Dragons taking out the spoon this year. They finished 10th last year, I believe. I said I'd take a gentleman's 10th, so I will take that at 12-12. Anthony Griffin might be the coach that's under the most pressure externally that there is in the NRL at the moment. They're paying $51 to win the whole thing. That is the longest odds outside of teams called the Dolphins and the Knights.
Who do they play today?
They
Well,
play,
no, they got the
they
bye.
play the bye. Tough game. Tough game.
Lucky for them.
Come away with the win.
Nice.
Points
Strong
difference of
start
0.
to the season, yeah.
Yes, but we're ahead of Penrith on the ladder as it stands. So probably finish the season like that, I'd say. And actually, a bit of a saving grace for the Dragons. The first 5 is. We don't play any kind of world beaters.
Top 8 teams.
Yeah, in that first 5. So hopefully get a few under the belt as a Dragons tragic and sort of set up the season for, a gentleman's 13th, I think, where I have them this year.
Well, I think that's a great point because they need to start well. Because if they don't start well in the first month and to the lesser teams,
Shit Creek.
Yeah, well, Griffin's gone. I think they've given. I think reports are he's been given the month. Which is a tough thing to do. Like you got to start the season well, but they haven't started their off season well. We've already talked about the Melee and Mudgee, and whether that ends up being as bad for the club as a certain barbecue was, I'm not sure.
Let's just clarify. We're talking about the Melee and Mudgee facetiously because I believe Melee is like a brawl. It means like it's all in. I think it was maybe a Super Smash Brothers kind of iteration or something.
I think it was more like Latrell with Whiten kind of wrestle was maybe more of what it was.
Zane Musgrove, Michele Ravalawa, few bevies. I don't think there was much in it.
Yeah,
from what I can tell.
I think the more important thing is the only people there were players. There was no one else at this hotel, so someone's snitching. So and why to the media? What are you getting out of that? So
you reckon there's a mole? Hands mole man.
My point being is too many distractions. There's too much other shit going on at Dragons. Let's hope it doesn't end up being their downfall. I think the entire season relies on Ben Hunt. Anything happens to Ben Hunt, they are guaranteed a wooden spoon. If he can play most of, if not all the season, I think they will probably avoid the spoon. But it's really up to him and how far he can carry this Dragons team this year. But overall, they've really done nothing to get super better, and they've lost a lot of talent. A lot of their young talent wants out as well. A lot of rumours there. So, it's going to be a tough year for my 2 Dragons fans down here, and a very exciting one for myself when I can rub it in every week.
Is it a sadist that enjoys the suffering of others?
Well, I did talk about, I was hoping the CBA wouldn't go through, etc., and that happened. So, the saddest in me was hoping for the worst because rugby league, but anyway.
I agree with you in that didn't do a heap to try to improve where they currently are. Jacob Little comes in to fill the big shoes of Andrew McCulloch. I think a thing that Hook did really quite well was poaching a lot of his ex-Bronco mates. So McCulloch's hung up the boots. Little, with respect, is a reasonable 9 in the NRL. Had 70-odd games with the Tigers, but I don't think he's quite where Macca was as a 9, and then losing half his spine to very different circumstances in the lead up to the season has to really take a toll on the way that you plan for the year, on the morale amongst the players. Cody Ramsey, no fault of his own, has ulcerative colitis, a horrible gut disease. They've put a line in him for the season, and it's kind of, let's think about his health long term, and it's a plus if he plays.
The worry is
rugby league again. So we shout a beer on this. I don't know what you shout for ulcerative colitis, a fucking Yakult or something like. Hopefully,
probably on waters, and that's it.
Yeah, hopefully, he's got the best medical team around him and just taking really good care of him as a person, not just as a footy player moving forward. And then kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, a really talented guy in Junior Monet, who was wearing that 6 jersey and didn't look that out of place last year in a few games. He's been stood down indefinitely over, and it's the NRL's, no fault policy. So it's no 3 strikes anymore. You get yourself into off-field drama, which young Junior did, swinging a hammer at people or something along those lines.
It's not great visuals, but rugby league and a rugby league.
So you've got this, world-beating halfback and went close to being a Dally M winner in Ben Hunt, and then you've brought in a new 9, and then the rest of your spine sort of sort of goes, it's going to be a lot of pressure on Tyrell Sloan and Jaden Sullivan, who will be wearing the 1 and the 6. Sloan is very talented.
Yeah, but Sloan wants out, so...
Well, that's the news.
Yeah, well, he said he wants out, and they won't let him go. That is the news. They've
Can we get that in paper?
He said, "I want out," and they've said, "No, we're not releasing you." So yeah, I don't know. It just seems like there's too many cons, building in that list than there are pros, and there's only one pro, and it's Ben Hunt. So
yeah,
let's hope for your two sakes that they can at least have a couple wins this year.
So, something has to be said of a club when 3 players rock up to your awards. Yes, it was at a bad time. Yes, they did it too late, and a lot of people wanted to fuck off to Bali or wherever. But 3?
Yeah, well, I think
3.
A lot of people hate the front office, back and forth. I was thinking this as you were talking about, the NFL's PA's just done their team report cards.
The Commanders.
Yeah, I'd be all Fs across the board. I'd be interested to see if the NRL would do something similar. And what, as in how are the clubs treating their players, and what do the players think of the club they're playing for? Who's got the bad report card? Because it feels like the Dragons would be the Commanders at this point.
Systemic racism from the top there. Sorry. Anyone that knows the NFL and Dan Snyder might appreciate that one. As a Dragons fan, you got to look at the positives. Always look at the bright side of life. Silver Linings Playbook. Bradley Cooper, very good looking.
Yeah. So do you have a Ben Hunt portrait in your house then?
It's actually in the basement. It's where I go for my special time. No, looking at the positives, I think the left and the right edges are actually up there with one of the more formidable in the NRL. Zach Lomax and Jack Bird on one side. Moses Suley, who really the Dragons kind of gave him a bit of a lifeline last year, really sort of developed into a reasonable centre, and Jaden Sewer on that right edge. But we flog it to death on this podcast. It doesn't really matter what your outside backs and what your edge back rowers are doing if 1, 6, 7, 9 aren't
no platform, no
elite.
service, no points.
Exactly right. And then, the other big positive is Ben Hunt. If he goes down, may God have mercy on our soul. The last rites, whatever the Exorcist says to demons to keep them at bay.
Did he play with a broken arm or a broken leg last year?
Leg, fibula, I believe.
Crazy.
So toughness, we spoke about Munster and Hunt. They're all country Queensland boys, and they're just built different, aren't they?
Yeah, how'd he go during the origin period?
Yeah, really good. We'll talk about the Knights in a second, but Ponga and Hunt, they when you put elite talent around them, it really brings out how good a rugby league footballer they are. Look, boys, this is completely off the back of my own personal investment. I have them finishing 14th. I actually thought I had them 13th, but I think I bumped the Warriors above them. I've got them 14th.
Warriors looked good the other day.
Yeah, with the Titans, Knights, and Finns below them. Looking at that team list, there is no reason to justify, like if I went through 1 through 17 and gave each player grades, there's probably no reason that those other 3 teams should be below them when it's all wrapped up. The thing that I've also got in my favour and in the Dragons have got in their favour is the last few years everyone's like Dragon Spoon, they're terrible clubs in disarray, and they've put in performances.
So you're saying this year it's going to happen?
Well, they've put in performances where they've played overs.
Yeah.
They've played overs, and they've continued to do it. And the club, St George, the last time they won a spoon was in the 1930s, and I don't think the Illawarra Steelers ever got one. Yeah. So I think history.
They've never had one before. They're never going to have one.
Yeah, but you also the reason why they're playing overs. Because they've got Ben Hunt, so he's really carrying that team and put them on their back.
Build a statue.
Yeah, well,
that's it.
Probably going to need to if they avoid the spoon this year with Ben Hunt. So
build a nice looking statue. Hopefully not the people that sculpted that Ronaldo statue, which
not the first one.
Yeah, it looks like my 8-month-old daughter could have made that one better. But Ben Hunt statue in Dalby. Dingo, I think he's from. The town of Dingo. The Dingo Stonewide town in Queensland, and a statue at the front of Wynn Stadium for Ben Hunt.
Yeah.
Monks, you any more bullish than me?
So we've got a 17 and a 14. Where did you go?
Yeah, we did talk about this last week, where I had Dolphins at 15, the Knights at 17. Dragons will fit in right between there at number 16.
And that speaks volumes when a fan has got, let's not get the spoon. Let's not set the bar too high here.
That's it.
We'll just avoid it.
I think I set the bar as making the 8 last season just for fun.
Wasn't far off.
True. Culture of the team, I think, just taken a massive hit over the last couple of years, probably since the barbecue.
So we could say, and as well, this off season, it could go either way as well. And they haven't played. We'll see in the coming weeks what it looks like. Yeah, they could really fall off the cliff, or maybe it stills them together and they play better. But we will see.
You did have those opening rounds up. If you've got that tab still open, they actually don't play a really good rugby league team for a few months. So Titans next Sunday into Broncos. That's a bit scary. Actually, Sharks are a really good rugby league team. But then if you go forward through there, Dolphins, Titans again, Raiders. So I hope that there's a couple of wins there to just instill a bit of confidence and just say, look, we're not the worst team in the NRL this year.
I think the Finns is a good test there.
Yep.
Yeah. If they lose the Finns, that's where you go, all right, season's done. What else can I do?
Even this time next Sunday, that's at home, is it not? The first game against the Titans?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So coming off, the long break, being that's interesting as well, the way that the scheduling works, have the bye and then be the last team to play. So it means they get a look at what everyone's doing. To play them, at Jubilee Stadium there, the traditional home of the St George Dragons, against the Gold Coast Titans team who they were able to beat late last year, who admittedly have gotten better, but if they can just set the tone next week, that'll be interesting.
Yeah,
that's it. And then Griffin will probably get the axe sometime during the season, so you count that for another win the week after as well.
That's right. Well, if this podcast has shown us anything, you sack your coach, you win the next week, and then after that, it's a bit how you're going. One final point on our Dragons, we'll probably spend a little bit more time on them than we will for other teams, but this is a big year for the senior players that borderline Origin calibre, have played Origin in the past. In Jack DeBellin, went through his off-field dramas, had close to 2 years outside of the NRL. In Zach Lomax, who lots of people think if he can get those little errors, those flick passes that miss, if he can get that out of his game, Jack Bird, those kind of guys, if they can really step up and play overs, and a few of those younger guys sort of take in that experience and learn from them, maybe we can get to that gentleman's sort of 13th, 14th sort of not laughing stock kind of gear.
That's the big worry. If you looked at all the teams, you kind of have a concern that the Dragons might end up being a laughing stock. You can see it going wrong very, very quickly.
And if the Dolphins win 2 games this year, you'll be like, oh, well, they're a new team kind of thing. It's not a team with 100 years of history.
They haven't got much to prove.
Yep. Talking the other end of the spectrum, let's talk about the Sydney Roosters. A lot of people have got them minor premiers or top 2, top 3. They did finish 6th last year, although pretty injury ravaged. They won 15 games. They're paying $5.50 to win the whole thing under Trent Robinson, who's won 2 of the things himself. And they bring in the Cheese, one of the biggest characters in the NRL, and people kind of forget how good a footballer he actually is, because he's kind of that larrikin, off-field funny kind of bloke. They bring in Corey Allen, who looks like he'll play a bit on the wing there, and then Jake Turpin, I think, is kind of this backup to the Cheese, because they part ways with Sammy Verrills to the Titans. Boys, you can't talk about the Chooks without talking about sombreros and salary caps and brown paper bags and whatever else has been alleged. It does seem unusual that they can bring in already, that they're playing this afternoon, and Dom Young and Spencer Leniu are coming in next year. Is it just people just want to go play for the Chooks because it's a great organisation, or is there a little bit of dodgy stuff going on? Is it a bit of both?
Yeah, hard to say. By all accounts, though, the reports for Daniel Tupou, he gets moved on as a potential, cut in the salary cap. But you look at, I think they did the report of what the guys are getting paid and what they would actually be worth on the open market. The Roosters by far were the most expensive team then, with guys getting paid unders in that regards. But you go to the Roosters to win comps. That's where they're at. And I was thinking about this during the week. Trent Robinson, when does he start entering that conversation with Wayne and Bellamy as being one of the greatest coaches of all time?
They win the whole thing this year. You can insert him in there.
Yeah, because he's won plenty of comps and he's won a lot of football games with the Roosters, and especially even with the turnover at halfback, as you use an example, going from Pearce to Cronk to now to Walker, they're still finding ways to win football games and being the top 4 perennials. It's crazy to think. And there's always chat already that maybe they'll throw a lifeline to Big Napper as well to come back. And he's had a couple of rough years, but he'll come back to the Roosters and he'll play overs, of course. So I don't know about their books and about Sambreros and Mercedes and Hiluxes, etc. But they seem to know how to do the job and get the talent in the door on the cheap.
They actually on 360 did a breakdown of what they think everyone's on, and the numbers didn't quite add up. But look, you could say the same thing about Penrith. They just don't historically have that, buying players from elsewhere.
You also look at, but they've lost Crichton, Appy, and a kick-out for that reason, which
is what we're saying about when we spoke about Penrith is that they're a victim of their own success, whereas it
Roosters
seems like the Chooks seem to by their own success. Yeah. Anyways, all speculation aside, you look at 1 through 17 and they look like a really good rugby league team. You look at that spine with Brandon Smith coming in, and you've got Teddy and former, NRL premiership winner in Luke Keary after, getting a bit of run back in the legs last season. I think the question is can a 20-year-old Sammy Walker lead this team to winning the comp this year? He'll be 21, I think, in June. He's offensively, like when they're attacking, he shows these little bits of individual brilliance, which maybe it's too big a comparison, but young Benji Marshall kind of comes to mind. But then defensively, are they able to hide him well enough? That's the thing. And, they've... who they put next to him? Is it Victor Radley, etc.? Yeah, they've got the bodyguard. Yeah, they've got Kevin Costner. Exactly. And will always love. Yeah, growing up watching Lockyer play 6 and then having Tony Carroll standing next to him as very much in that role as I help. I'm covering 2 spots here just to make sure that you're not getting taken out of the game. Trent Robinson knows how to coordinate that. So I think he'll be able to protect Sam as much as possible. I got a question maybe on Keary. Does he play 6, or maybe does Joey jump into that, Joey Manu? Take that spot over? Do they see him as the 6 long term? Great question. There's be some chat about that, and then because then they can have a play with the backs and get some of the other guys in there, freeze them up, and maybe that's their better 13. Overall, I think that's a bit stiff. It is different. I've also seen that comparison or that idea. And Manu, when he plays 6, his record is impeccable. Well, when he got hurt last year against South in that first game, and then didn't play in the second one, and they lost, he was really the difference. You'd see that his value, which was interesting because I think he was playing centre at that point, but you see what he does in their structures and in their backline for scoring points is just really important. Can't fault him. I've got him second. Plus they're paying him a fuckload. So he's on that 6 money as a centre. Yeah. I think when we started this podcast, we used to talk about Joey Manu, the most underrated centre in the NRL. Is he the most underrated 6 in the NRL? Underrated player. I think he's got his just desserts now in that people recognise how fucking good he is. Yeah. And my final point, on the Roosters, the big lacking last year was they didn't have, probably a hooker to go with where the club wanted to be at, and Cheese could be the difference. Besides all the injuries, they can stay healthy and have that position. Yeah, like you said before, they're top to bottom one of the better rosters in the league. 2? You got him second?
Yes, I think they were 2 for me.
Monks?
I
Well,
dropped him
you
down
had
to
someone else 2.
third. Yeah.
Yeah, he had
You had
South.
South 2.
Yeah.
Yep.
So 2, 2, 3.
But yeah, very much could easily switch those 2 around as well.
That brings us into the West Tigers, and maybe the most interesting team to talk about this year. The Wooden Spooners from last year, 4-20, blaze it.
Most improved, maybe?
Well, I think in terms of the recruiting, I think, they did the best in terms of getting names over there to play under Tim Sheens and Benji Marshall.
Yep.
Is that going to be beneficial, or does...
Have you heard the chat during the week?
I have,
There's been a bit of back and forth, bit of cultural differences, and I guess
as per the mainstream media, as per Need a Story.
Yeah, as per Buzz Rothfield. So, it's probably maybe something there because, Tim Sheens is going to be the older kind of style. That's his background, whereas Benji's, played under him and now is, technically, I guess, a young fella when it comes to coaching ranks and playing in this millennium. So, yeah, they probably will have differences. But knowing them and knowing that I think Robbie Farah is there as well, but between them, they'll figure out what they need to do and hopefully put together the best club they can.
You'd think those 3, though, would relatively be on the same page, though.
Yeah, and that's where I think, a little news story that comes out this week that there's, been disharmony or whatever.
The way I
don't buy into it.
The way I read into that is maybe Sheens being the tough nut maybe went after him, and Benji's like, oh, maybe these boys need more of a cuddle than you getting stuck into them. So, that's kind of where I would see the only real difference and where they kind of come culturally. But who knows? If you're not in that dressing room, if you're not there with the cameras on all season like they were last year, it's hard to tell.
And every team has a coach and assistant coaches. The name value of Benji and Robbie Farah and them being younger is why people
unproven
are talking about it. Yeah, I feel like, and again, from the outside looking in, I've got no idea how it actually works day to day.
Exactly, and I think the Tigers probably have the same problem that the Dragons do, that they've got too many snitches over there. That guys selling headlines. That's always been a problem, I guess, out of Tigerland is. I know the club's heavily run by previous players that obviously like to talk a little bit. So,
let's talk about on paper the ins and outs, because it seems like the ins that they've got should bode to some success. I think some success would be not coming last.
Can we talk about the first one?
Yeah, Johnny Bateman.
Yeah, interesting. He's still not here.
So I thought he was here but wasn't playing this weekend because he couldn't.
Yeah, well, I think that they...
Chase up, is he in the country?
Yeah, well, I think they reckon maybe he's going to miss a month or so. I think he's got a calf injury. And Tigers may not have known about it when they signed him, and there's maybe a little bit of back and forth. Tigers maybe trying to keep it a bit hush-hush that they didn't fuck up and pay overs for a dude that might miss a large portion of the season. That was the recent rumours, again, out of Tigerland, that there's... Bateman still hasn't appeared.
I saw a picture of him not long ago. Didn't look like he was in the shape that he was in when he was sort of tearing it up for the Raiders either, but he's always been that undersized sort of edge forward from the north of England who just sort of plays bigger than he is.
Yep.
I thought he was in the country, but I could be wrong. See how you go with that. An edge back row who's definitely in the country and is ready to rip and tear is Isaiah Papali'i, coming across from the Eels. It's funny to imagine that the Warriors didn't really want him 2 years ago, and then he goes over on peanuts to the Eels and became anyone that plays Supercoach or NRL Fantasy one of their favourites over the last few years.
Coaching, bro.
He's got to make an impact straight away, I would think.
Yeah, I agree.
And then Appy Coruscant, Dave Clemmer. Yep. What do you think about Appy getting the
I'm not sure
skipper straight away? And
well, especially after his comments post
can't wait to go to the Tigers. Yeah. He was also allegedly hammered knees deep at that stage.
He's hammered, so yeah, but it is is that liquid truth? So
maybe
I think it's a young club. He's a veteran coming off winning premierships, so I don't doubt it. And if the boys, part of that decision, they probably wanted him. So he's a big in for them.
Lose a few blokes who are reasonable first graders in the NRL. James Tarmow, probably a big one, going over to the Cowboys. We spoke about Little going to the Dragons, but obviously, with respect to Jacob Little, you'd probably prefer Api Coruscant. And Jackson Hastings, who actually played really well last year, I think. He goes to the Knights, but if Dewey and Brooks are healthy, that's probably your best 6 and 7 there at the West Tigers.
So Tarmow was an interesting one because he'd prefer to retire than play for the West Tigers. So that, what does that mean for that club? And they did struggle to get guys, but then they made a lot of these deals. Papalili is like Willie backflip, etc. So they've managed to keep them in there, and I guess bringing in Sheens and Benji to be the coaches here kind of helped solidify that they would go. But there's been some trouble in Tigerland. They need these guys to come in and they need to perform, and then hopefully with Sheens at the helm, they can win some matches.
Any news on Johnny Bateman?
Yeah, no, he's in the country. I think there were reports of an injury, but he had scans in England, and they did independent scans when he came across to Australia, and they all cleared. Only reason according to the chairman, only reason he's not playing this weekend is just because he hasn't acclimatised to the team. So whether that's all just smoke.
Let's come back in a month and see if he's
that's it. We'll see you next week. Seems to be all just smoke at the moment.
Both got them finishing 11th, which would be drastic improvement, although not quite there just yet.
Yeah, I think we're kind of seeing, will they take a similar step to some of those clubs that did last year? Don't think they'll do what the Cowboys did, but I think they're improved from where they were last year, and they should be better. Who's their sixth? I can't remember.
Dewey, who missed a lot of football last year.
Yeah, and he's probably their best player in their squad. And if he can get together and, with the help of Appy, get the kind of support and service he needs, then that'll go a long way to them being a much better football club this year.
Monks, where you got him?
I got him just behind you guys, 13th.
Yeah. Yep. I think it's purely on ends. Let's hope they don't go the way of recent Tiger teams and be battling for the spoon.
They can't. With those blokes coming in, you can't.
You
can't see them.
You wouldn't think so, but Tigers have done silly things.
Tigers things.
Yeah.
I think we just really quickly run through round one because we've kind of alluded to most of it. But Melbourne get their last minute win in Golden Point against Parramatta. Para pretty good throughout that one. Harry Grant.
Better.
Sealing the deal there. The Storm haven't lost in round one for 20 years. That is ridiculous. Warriors beat Newcastle over there in New Zealand. I think that will bode well for them this year, being able to play at home. Mitch Barnett and Chance Nickel-Clockstad
so good for them.
looking good in that one.
Can we talk a little bit about Ponga? Because I think it's been very evident from round one so far, the light head knocks and going sent off for HIA. So Ponga got sent off with 11 minutes to go to do his head injury assessment. It was fine, and they were sending back out. But you have a mandatory 10 minutes. Happened to Capewell and it happened to Chris as well, where really it's a slap on the face and they've gone off. So I think there's probably been a directive to be very careful with it at the start of the year, maybe whether that lines up. But it's interesting that, even a light touch was sending guys to get reviewed for HIA assessments. And most of those ones that I saw, they came back into the match. So, but losing it, it's not a equivalent of a sin bin, but it's pretty close. Imagine if Nathan Cleary with a game on the line, they slap him on the chin, so he's got to sit down for 10 minutes with nothing wrong. It's interesting. Part of the conspiracy in me, the NRL season bitching about the CBA and health and being retired players and stuff like that. So we'll take the nth degree, any head knock, you got to go off. So,
well, let's talk about that in the Cowboys Raiders game where Sticky actually made that comparison.
Yep.
Where Seb Chris had to go off for a HIA, and he made some scathing comments regarding the Players Association and the NRL in general, saying the RLPA, they just want to talk about having more time off and more dollars and people going off for these HIAs, but they're happy for him to play in, sweltering heat at 4:30 in March, and he made the comparison that that's maybe worse for the players' welfare. I don't know where I stand on that, but it's definitely become apparent from these first 6 games that they've really taking a hardline approach when it comes to HIAs.
Yeah. And I did see 3 shoulder charges over the weekend, and only 1 resulted in a sin bin. So Rapana and Felt, I think, might be up for potential fines, if not suspensions, from their hits. But
well, with Rapana, because he has priors, he's looking at 3 weeks.
Yeah.
He's looking at 3 weeks. So there goes the argument of Rapana playing 1 for the Raiders. Yeah. It's going to be Seb Chris, and Sticky said that as well. It's going to be Seb Chris until Xavier Savage is ready.
Yeah, I think talking to my insider, the old man, was saying
deep in Raiders HQ
that Rapana basically said, "Give it to Chris. I'm too old." To play 1, which is, I guess, fair. Like he's doing the team of souls. Like I'm not really. Can play 80 minutes as a fullback, though when he was covering for Chris in that period, when a fresh Rapana, he looked pretty deadly in that second half for the Raiders at 1 and helped to get them back into that game against the Cowboys. But yeah, like 80 minutes as a fullback would probably kill Rapana. So I can see why he's done the good thing and said, yeah, give one of the young fellas a go at 1 because I'm too old for your shit.
Manly convincing winners up there at 4 Points Park against Canterbury. DCE, his first ever hat-trick in the NRL, albeit the last one being an intercept on the last play. And then we've got to talk a bit about South. They were 2 men down early with Dry Arrow and Taveta Totola and were much better than the Cronulla Sharks. Wade Graham having 10 in the bin for his high shot. He's probably looking at some time on the sidelines. Yep. And maybe the funniest thing in this game was the Tim Sue jersey controversy. Where
swapping it.
Well, Nico, he was wearing a South jersey and they interviewed him, and then Nico obviously can't play, so he's got to come and get a few laughs, gave him a Sharks jersey, and then ended up putting it on.
Yeah.
So and he admitted that he is a bit of a bandwagoner because he used to go for the Knights and they were crap, so he jumped on the South bandwagon.
Yeah, they won a premiership, now a switch. So
has a world title fight next week, which we'll speak about.
Yes.
Oh, because he had that one fight that got cancelled. So I'm not sure what belt he's fighting for, but yes, we'll talk about that next week.
Boxing, I don't actually know. All the belts.
Yeah, all the belts.
Pokemon. Got to catch them all. 2 games this afternoon. The Dolphins will make their debut against the Roosters. I hope that it's not too much of a bloodbath, but I would think the Chooks get the job done there. And then I'm really quite interested in seeing how these West Tigers go against the Gold Coast Titans. Poor Beau Firma, who had a really standout year last year, did his ACL in, I think, their final training session, which is heartbreaking. So hopefully he has a good recovery.
Yeah. And I think the day Fafita news, his missus poo-pooed the move to Canberra, so Brisbane are now back in the conversation. So
the Queensland sombrero wearers.
Yes. So late charge there. Titans want to keep him. Brisbane, I don't know why, considering where their back row is at currently. They're paying Ricky good money. They've got Carrigan there, like
Capewell.
Exactly. I don't know, see the fit, but anyway. They obviously want him back on the books.
Were you chasing up anything there, Monks, or are we ready to go over to America?
No, I think we're ready to take a flight.
Let's go. Sydney to LAX.
Curry sets, fires, puts it up. Bang!
Few records broken during the week. So Clay Thompson had 12 3-pointers in their win against the Rockets. It's actually the 3rd time he's done it. No one has done it 3 times before. So him and Steph had done it twice. A few people had done it twice. And he sort of said tongue-in-cheek that it was nice to have a record that Steph doesn't have. He's carrying them at the moment. Still a lot of uncertainty as to how long Steph Curry is going to be out. They're still winning some games. You'd think they're in a much better position than the Los Angeles Lakers, who we'll talk about in a second. But Are they leaving their run too late? Time will tell. A team that's obviously been bolstered with the addition of Kevin Durant, who made his debut during the week. I think he scored 23 points in 24 minutes in the Phoenix Suns. Devin Booker actually became the franchise record holder for 3-pointers in Suns history. And then what about lighting that beam, boys?
They do good.
They can score points.
Yeah.
They can really score points. This one was a double OT game against the Clippers. They win by a point, 176 to 175. Someone should have told the boys that the All-Star game was last week. But De'Aaron Fox had 42. Malik Monk had 45, which is wild, like considering who else kits out for the Clippers. PG 13 had 44. I think they're I don't know if they're going to win the whole thing, but they should go reasonably deep when it comes to playoff time in the West. The Kings.
That would be a very Kings thing to do to win it all after we poo-pooed them and made fun of their beam that they wouldn't be turning it on very much.
Is it a Kings thing or is it a On The Esky thing?
Yeah, the curse.
Could you imagine if the Sacramento Kings are the champions of the NBA? Like, weirder things have happened. Leicester won the EPL. Yeah. Like, that would look. It's probably not 5,000 to 1 like Leicester, but it's up there.
Yeah.
Again, we're still a few months off playoff time. I'm sure plenty of teams have looked good and finished third in the West and fizzled out pretty quickly. So, look, they keep shining that beam, baby. Julius Randle and his Knicks continue to look okay, and we saw some crazy finishes. It actually happened 2 days in a row, wasn't it? With full court shots that went in, but
just after the buzzer.
Yeah, the buzzer, the backboard was just lighting up red. So Joel Embiid did it against the Celtics. He had 41 in a losing effort there, and then it was PG 13 as well the next day that did it there. Let's have a look at the East, Monks, if you wouldn't mind scrolling up slightly there. The Celtics and Bucks have really sort of solidified themselves there. It's a 5-game lead, is it? 4.5 between the Celtics and 76ers in third. Cavs, Knicks, Nets all looking okay. That is the top 6 as it stands. You'd imagine the Heat jump the Brooklyn Nets. Who's having a great time at the Nets? Mikal Bridges. Jeez, he's really taking that probably number 1 role under his wing there for the Brooklyn Nets. The Hawks, Raptors, Wizards, Bulls, Pacers, Magic, all very tight. So 5 games separate all of them around about that 500 down to 0.422. Do we see any of them bothering anyone in the East late? Probably not.
No.
Let's get... Oh, you want to keep talking East? Or?
No. I was just I saw someone else had a very long losing streak, and I can't remember if it was the Pistons with 7 or was it? No, they've obviously broken it. Someone had another 14.
The Spurs had a massive one, and then I bet on a team to beat them, and they won. Yeah, so
of course.
I'm trying to remember who it was.
Yeah.
The Spurs did break a long losing.
They had a long one.
I
thought there was another one that was following that had a similar, just as bad losing streak. But anyway,
it was the Pacers. They beat the Pacers. The Nugs, they're going to finish first. It's ridiculous. I think Jokic went past 100 triple doubles this week
and
still
in
his career.
Undefeated this year on triple doubles as well.
It's a wild stat. It's a wild stat. He had a triple dub today, and it was yesterday, and it was like a 18-10. Like, didn't score many points, but they get the win.
Yeah,
they get the win.
That's all that matters.
The Grizz, how are they going to respond to the Ja Morant mop of the week? That's probably their biggest concern. You know, it's a little up and coming podcast here in Australia, giving their superstar a mop. But in all seriousness, he really is the heart and soul of that team. It just stands as 2 games at the moment, but if there ends up being criminal charges, that may all change.
Yeah, hard to say. They did play okay with him missing last year as well. So we'll have to see how they kind of progress as the weeks start to roll in. But it's probably the worst time for it, especially when you're trying to keep pace with the Nuggets, and then also got guys really chasing you down as well, like the Kings, Suns, Warriors, even down to the Mavs now with, they're all could be hunting you down, and very quickly you could go from 2 down to 7-8.
Dude, the Clippers there at 500 with Russ coming in and reteaming with PG-13, and we kind of spoke about it when the trade was announced, last pod, but they look pretty good. Mm-hmm. They look pretty good. Mm-hmm. They're with the former MVP Russ dishing out dimes. It's a bit more wide open. You'd think in the West, like in the East, it's like Celtics, Bucks, and who. Yeah. Is actually going to
the Sixers,
exactly. Whereas in the West, you've got the Warriors there without Steph sitting there in fifth. We spoke about Clay and how good he's been for him, but when Steph comes back,
they were in 10th, weren't they? So they made their starting their run kind of exactly where we thought they would. So they've really started to move. Whereas I guess this is where we wanted the Lakers to see it, and they kind of started to make a run as well. But then I guess LeBron is the big out and probably going to miss
most of March. You had an article up there, didn't you,
yes.
Monks, about LeBron. We had his jersey up. He's had a record year in becoming the most accomplished player in terms of scoring points in the NBA history, but this team just really struggles without him. It's a big load for AD to carry. I don't know if he can. And if he's missing all of March, like this is kind of moving month in the NBA. They're only a couple games out of play in there, but I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I think it'd be more of the case of one of those other teams in front of them
shitting the bed.
Well,
speaking of the Pelicans, just before Christmas were on top of the West.
Yeah.
So
true.
You forget that pretty quick. And they have been going south pretty quick. So
the Clippers
the Jazz started well, back in September, October. So
and Clippers have lost 5 straight. So it's I think it'd be more one of those 3 not doing enough, and say the Lakers can do just enough, and they might sneak in. So. But they're looking at 10th. That's kind of what I'm getting at. They want one of those 3 to falter so they can maybe sneak in there.
LeBron update?
So he missed 2 games and expected to, will be reevaluated in 3 weeks' time. So could miss a fair chunk of time.
So that's minimum 3 weeks. That's you're looking at 12 games.
Did you see the interesting video with him and Mahomes? Because after Mahomes won the Super Bowl, so their first, I think it was the last game LeBron played. So LeBron's taking the ball in, and of course Mahomes is there, and he's just like, "Yeah, you're not the only one playing on a bump ankle." So the people that eagle-eyed have picked up on it and got it, and it's like, oh, okay. So his foot's not been great, and it's obviously just aggravated and getting worse and worse. So. Yeah, he is a freak. He's played a very, very long time, so I wouldn't surprise me if he heals like Wolverine and will be back in no time. And they need him. I think it's the main thing.
Yeah, 100.
The sooner they get LeBron back, the sooner they could push. Which is crazy to think that they must rely on a 20-plus year veteran to come back and carry them again into another postseason.
Yeah, he's arguably the GOAT.
Yeah,
just because he's 38. It's pretty wild.
Yeah,
I think I've said it for a few months now. I just don't see it happening for them this year.
So is this their run home?
Yeah.
Look at that, like upcoming, like Golden State, Memphis, like
tough.
At least they get the Raptors and Knicks at home. Then they've got to go on the road to play the Pels and Rockets.
The Pels game would be big.
Yeah, that's probably for that playing spot, you might think.
Then they go back to Dallas and they got the Suns. It's not
It's uphill battle, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And look, they've got a run down there. Look at the start of April. So when we're looking at maybe LeBron coming back, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the road.
Yeah.
So, and then they look at the last 4 there. Utah, Clippers, Suns, Utah.
Yeah, it's a lot within the conference as well.
Yeah,
which is scary.
Yep. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah. Not with LeBron out. It's going to be very difficult.
Let's talk some soccer.
was just going to mention Jake Gyllenhaal. Did you see his rig?
Ripped ass.
Yeah, he's
Hold on
they're
for a
filming
second.
they're filming the Roadhouse remake, and so he's in it.
Patrick Swayze.
Yeah.
That is the original.
Yeah, so
Roadhouse.
So he's in the UFC. So they did a fake weigh-in yesterday to film some scenes using the weigh-in. So they had all the guys there to say some words, and Jake of course got on the scales and fucking ripped.
He's jacked.
Yeah.
Probably doesn't have to worry about
Yeah,
USADA.
no USADA.
Yeah. Well, yes. No drug tests in the movie industry.
Conor McGregor's in it. That's why they're sitting next to each other.
Yep. I think Conor.
He's also obviously doing the Ultimate Fighter with Chandler.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I have a feeling he was involved in the background of it.
An ex-UFC fighter ends up working at a roadhouse in the Florida Keys. That's a fucking strange place for a roadhouse. Just trucking on down to the Florida Keys. The road runs out here, brah. Yeah, interesting. Patrick Swayze, 1989. Remember old Transact? I remember this. This is a very Canberra reference. Old fucking Roadhouse ads Transact back in the day. Swayze, stupid, sexy Swayze.
And since I've used this spot to break out the segment, we're getting into the co-main with Valentine, the Bullet coming out next. I say she sleeps this bird in probably 2 rounds.
Valentina Shevchenko, Valentine Holmes, Valentine, and Valentino Rossi. If you just want to make things more complicated. I think probably she starches this poor girl, Grasso, but time will tell. Means we need to wrap things up so we can get into
So hit that Sue button again and we'll go into the soccer
double
section.
button. Sue! Everton, their woes continue. They lost 2-0 last week to the Villains.
Are they at the bottom?
No, I think they're 18th. Monks, if you wouldn't mind bringing it up. Ollie Watkins, he's been playing all right for the Villains. Arsenal, they get a win last week against Leicester. They're also struggling big time. Our boy Harry Souttar, he got nuttied for Gabriel Martinelli to go through. City get a convincing win against Bournemouth. Liverpool 0-0 with Palace. It's funny, I was typed in why are Liverpool into Google this week. Comes up with so bad, suck this year, things of that nature.
Oh, just everything everyone's thinking.
To answer your question, Everton are equal last.
Oh, so all on points there, 21. It's tight. Look at that. Like
Southampton
no one,
with a win.
literally from 12th down, no one is safe there.
Yeah, it is very.
Which includes Palace, Wolves, Forest, Leicester, West Ham, who have really been disappointing this year. Leeds, Everton, Southampton, Bournemouth.
Mind you, Liverpool's looking to make a run into Champions League.
They're actually, they're actually not that far off.
Yeah, with United and their recent form, it's making it a little bit easier for them.
Dude, Ten Hag needs some props. They have been so good. They did win their first bit of silverware this week in quite some time. The prestigious Carabao Cup, which is the English Football League's probably the third most important bit of silverware. But look,
Silverware.
If that's my role, I'll take it.
$20 is $20.
Yeah, I got a feeling it's more than $20 that they won. But United, they're not that far off the pace. They got a couple games in hand, which will help.
How far back are they, Jimmy? Can you just go up for me?
So they're 9 behind City, but 2 games. So massive clash tonight for United up against Liverpool. Tell you what, Arsenal got by B's dick last night against Bournemouth. Bournemouth scored in 9.1 seconds. That's the second fastest goal in EPL history, if you're wondering. And then
How'd they do that?
I don't know, the old,
Bang.
pass goal. Yeah,
goalkeeper was playing up.
Yeah, he's probably setting his water up and then turning around and it's in the goal.
There's real FIFA kind of vibes there.
Yeah, exactly.
Broken controller kind of gear. But then Arsenal go bang, bang. And this one went to 97 minutes. So we've been speaking a lot about the extra time, the injury time, how long it goes these days. And Reece Nelson, he was a double sub. So he got substituted on for the substitute.
Okay.
He scored a left foot rocket that sent the Emirates into a frenzy. If they do end up winning the league, and they are 5 points clear of City on the same amount of games, one probably will look back to this game and think this may have been defining.
That's actual FIFA. Do you
Got
remember?
actually done by FIFA in 9 seconds. In 9 seconds. Anything that comes up like Stan Sport or anything, you might be able to see legit highlights there. Chelsea getting the win against Leeds, Spurs losing overnight, so that sort of makes things juicy there in that sort of mid-table kind of fight. And we spoke about Leicester. They lost last night to Southampton, which means Southampton jump up above Bournemouth on goals difference at the bottom end there. We've got to talk about Kylian Mbappe, boys. He's 24 years of age. Years of age. And he has the most goals for PSG ever.
Yeah.
201.
Absolutely crazy.
Nuts, dude. Nuts. Like how the sky is the limit for him. We spoke about it in the World Cup. It seems as though it's a changing of the guard for GOATs.
If he can keep it going, the longevity, he'll take over Messi and Ronaldo's current throne. And I think he, as well, with those stats, he was like 50 matches quicker than anyone else as well. So he's an unreal talent.
He's next level. Monk's really struggling to get highlights here, so maybe
I read the article. It sounds like they went down the wing and had a low cross come across and just put it back in the back of the net. So they obviously just got down the wing very quickly.
9 seconds. 9 seconds, boy. Let's wrap up this final round because I actually really want to watch these title fights. Boys. Let's do it. On the Esky final round, we do like our UFC. UFC 285 is currently underway. The co-main event in Valentina Shevchenko and Alexa Grasso about to do battle for the women's flyweight. But let's talk briefly about the big one, which is about to occur in, say, half an hour. John Jones, Cyril Gane for the heavyweight champion of the world. Jones, 26-1, about 3 years out of the ring. Yep. Cleaned out that light heavyweight division. Said, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to make the huge jump from 205 to 265 and go up and try and be the heavyweight champ of the world. Sean, probably our most storied UFC expert on this table. How do you see the big one going down?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Yeah, 'cause there's been a lot of chat about Bones Jones' body coming into this. For some obligatory calf chat that he hasn't done any leg day. It's all been upper body.
Champion of the world, bro. You don't need big calves.
I know.
Anderson Silva, any calves? No.
So I think he weighed in a pound heavier than Gane. He doesn't look it based on rigs. But
what were they, about 250?
247 and 248 and a half, I think. In that, that's the numbers I vaguely remember, but around there. I think the main ones was about, they were saying Jones' squat numbers and they're ridiculous, hundreds and hundreds of pounds of plates. So he's definitely looking very, very strong, whether he's got, maybe some of that dad bod strength. Yeah. I think that his only issue really is he's being compared currently to Gane, who's got a huge rig. So it will be interesting whether his power translates. Everyone he really fought in the light heavyweight division was always smaller than him, whereas they're about the same size, height-wise. I think he still will have the reach advantage.
Yeah, what about that reach? Like, we've got to talk about that. Still has 3.5 inches of reach.
Ridiculous reach. I don't think you can doubt Jones's ability at this point. If he wins this fight, I don't think it matters anymore. He's the GOAT.
You think give it to him? Is this like Brady winning at Tampa Bay?
The dude's put on almost 50 pounds, gone up a division, and then wins the title. Like that's unheard of. Yeah, it's a crazy thing to do. it's why it took so long, and she spent 3 years kind of building up to this point instead of, you know, hitting that Macca's diet and hit 50 pounds in 6 months kind of thing.
I'm just quickly going back to the rankings. Like, he's still sitting on the rankings as pound for pound.
Yeah, number 10 hasn't fought in
top rank. So, like, the fact that he hasn't fought in 3 years and still top ranking as a fighter.
Well, there's some jokes during the week that, you know, other questions asked to him by the media saying, you know, are you the pound for pound number one? Like, you nothing's really changed for you in that regards. And he's like, you know, he just gave Volk his props and it's like, I think Volk's number one. I love what he does. He's well deserving of it. So it'll be interesting. You know, the Drake curse scares me a little bit. And I wonder, you know, the question of does his power translate with the bigger boys? Probably not, but his fight IQ is ridiculous. He's got that wrestling background. It's just whether, you know, that will be enough to be dominant in the heavyweight division. Where if you've watched all the recent heavyweights, say in the last 6 months, it's just who has the bigger bazooka at the end of the day. Who hits hardest and lands first ends up winning. So. Which, you know, is not really Jones's style. So to see how that progresses into this, whether he can weather the storm, take deep waters, I don't think if they get it into the, you know, 3rd, 4th and 5th round in this, I think that bodes very well for Jones.
Definitely.
Yeah, I personally would love to see him win. I think that's an unreal story, but it's a very, very tough task to come in against these great heavyweights. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. 3 years, weight class up, a little bit of ring rust. Yeah. I got it there probably Gunn got found out a little bit with his Ngannou fight when they last fought, with the wrestling in the later rounds. So, as you mentioned, if Jones can get into round 4 and 5,
deep
it might be the deciding factor, yeah.
That was January last year. Jeez, that's a long time.
Tua did show that he's hittable as well. So but he also, you know, ate that shot and then managed to come back and win that fight. So
completely different styles as well. Like, you know, Jones maybe the most accomplished fighter of all time, but does he have that one kind of knockout punch that Bam Bam has?
If anything, it'd be the head kick. He did jobs against DC, and you know, got to remember DC won this belt as well, but also you know, had fought at heavyweight in the past and cut a lot to get down to light heavyweight.
Yeah, you talk about pedigree and legacy. I didn't realize that John Jones' first fight was UFC 87.
Yeah, nuts.
2008.
He was the youngest champion ever.
Yeah.
In the history of the UFC.
I completely forgot that he's been around.
Well, by age 30, if you look at the resumes of some of those top guys, what they achieved and what he's achieved, it's like triple what they've done. So it's crazy. They actually had a commentary table for this fight of previous light heavyweight fights were all guys that he had beaten. So
that's right.
The Knights of the round table.
There's not many guys in the UFC in these divisions that John Jones hasn't put the sword to. So
very true.
Whether Gain can be added to his resume will be very, very interesting.
That's it. Should we preview the next fight before it starts?
Yeah, Shevchenko and Grasso literally about to kick off. Shevchenko is 23-3, 7th title defense. So, you know, we talk about GOATs, and she's starting to put her name up as well. Again, you know, cross sexes. Do you have a lady GOAT? Do you have a man GOAT? But she's definitely approaching that chat, especially if she wins, you know, in the next few minutes.
And, you know, of those 3 losses, 2 of them, again, to Nunes, she's...
upper class, weight class as well.
Yeah, and very competitive. Should have probably won at least one of those. But, you know, got an unlucky split decision, but the second fight was very much in Nunes' favour. But that's kind of her trajectory. She's back on that path of who in the other divisions, you know, can take me on. Is it back to champ fight? But, you know, don't overlook Grasso in this one and make a mistake. She's got to come out here and do the job.
Do we know much about Grasso?
No, I think she's ranked 6th. Is that where she was?
Yeah, 6th. 15-3. That Araju
who fought earlier
today. That's her last fight about 6 months ago.
There's not many on that top 10 list that she hasn't already beaten. So it's she's just definitely a class above. She looks very much bigger than
and throwing front kicks in the first 15 seconds. I don't think I don't think she's too intimidated by Grasso coming up here.
It's a very difficult task, but we've
Stranger things have happened.
We've seen with Nunes. Nunes lost
Yeah.
hers.
Nunes,
It
Holly Holm
happens.
and Ronda Rousey. It can happen. Let's talk about the other fights on the main card, and we got to start remembering this name, Shavkat Rakhmonov, the Kazakh fighter. They fought at a catch weight. So who missed?
Neil missed by 4 pounds.
So Neil missed, and he missed out in this one. A lot has been spoken about Shavkat. He's had a rapid ascendancy up the rankings. He's only had 4 UFC fights before tonight, I believe. Hasn't lost ever. And a lot of people are already talking about him, in title fight kind of contention.
Can you make that bigger, Jimmy? I think Neil was very game in this. It was actually a pretty competitive fight. And went to the 3rd round, but the wearing him down and then got the submission there at the end to get the win. So was Neil at 7 was a step up for him, and was a close competitive fight, but he got the job done.
And Bo Nickel, a short price favourite, a wrestler, red nut. He gets a job done there in the middleweight division. Again, sort of in a similar kind of light to Shavkat. He's going to be really good.
Yeah, I think they showed it. He's had 3 UFC fights with 0 significant strikes absorbed, and I don't think he got one in this one.
Doesn't get hit.
Gets closes the distance, gets in, takedown, submission, like job done. As I said, as it happens, light work in the office for him today. He's going to be scary going in that middleweight division. They'll start thinking about pushing him up against some more tougher challenges and getting him in through that division.
I actually skipped over the other fight there in Gamrot and Turner. Did you see much of that one?
Who won that fight?
So
was a
split decision, Gamrot.
Yeah, I think it was very back and forth. They're both landing. A lot of good grappling. Changing positions as well. Every time I looked, I saw Turner look like he was doing more damage. But Gamrot I think was better on the ground. So split decision, probably fair with my quick assessment of what I saw.
And just briefly on the prelims, Cody Garbrandt, big name there to be on the prelims, coming off a few losses. He gets the unanimous decision win against Trevin Jones. And Dricus du Plessis, he's making a bit of a name for himself, the South African, with a win against Derek Brunson.
And that was
Unfortunately falling the other way for Bronson.
Yeah, he is, yeah.
Yeah, I think Bronson was 5th, I think, ranked, and then he was 10th. So it was a good
gonna
win
be a
for
big
him
swap
to
there.
push him up in that middleweight division. Is he middleweight or welterweight? I think it's middleweight.
Middleweight.
Yeah.
Yep.
We will do a full sort of breakdown, I think, of UFC 285 after we watch these 2 co-mains, and we'll talk about it in the next
But I
pod.
give Grasso some props. She's looking good behind her jab.
Yeah.
Getting in Tina's face a little bit, so pushing her back. But it's early days.
Early days indeed. Boys, the F1 is fast approaching, so that means I might go for a little quick wee break, and I'll let you two boys give a little season preview. It's not... Is it next weekend?
No, tonight.
Tonight.
It's tonight.
First race tonight.
All right.
Yep.
Rip in, you two. I'm definitely a casual for the F1. So I'll let you two discuss, and I'll be back in a minute.
Do you want to hit the Seb button if you can find it?
It's been a while since we've done this.
Bastian Vettel.
So, as mentioned, F1 is back tonight. First race in Bahrain.
Yep.
It's been quite an interesting for qualifying. I think Alonso was very good through the practice sections, as being the fourth in that list. Between the 3 big teams, Red Bull showing still their strength. They're 1 and 2.
Yep. They're just going up. Step above everyone else at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. Whether the Ferraris are sandbagging a little bit as well. That's a good takedown. Gets back up. Grasso's not too bad. Do you reckon she nicks the round though? I think she might get round 1.
Maybe that takedown.
Got locked in there. End. Ooh. That's a good round though. It's close.
Very close.
So the Ferraris will both start on the second row,
Yep.
with Leclerc just ahead of his teammate in Sainz.
Yep.
Some chat about they'd prefer to be second row starting with fresh tyres and front row starting with old tyres. So will
be interesting.
Yeah. I'm not sure if that's a bold strategy. Alonso, as mentioned, has been really good for Aston Martin. He's now going to start in fifth.
Great in that car, yeah.
Yeah, and Seb's probably a little bit disappointed in all that, but they see that they are they the team to take that step and compete with the top four? Are they the fourth team in that competition? And then we're followed by the Mercedes, who are 6th and 7th, who themselves have. Again, maybe they're sandbagging. They're out there putting out, the car's not good enough for this year. We're not going to chase titles this year. Same sort of shit they said last year, but then they kind of got competitive towards the back end.
I think they'll have a similar season. Like they might have some technical issues, so to speak, first couple of races. But they probably really need to step up to make sure they keep that gap between Ferrari and Red Bull and themselves.
If they can sort that shit out,
to be competitive.
Yeah, if they can sort that shit out in the first month instead of by mid-season, they will probably be more competitive this year than they were last. So Russell will start again in front of Hamilton by, what was that, 4 100ths of a second?
Yeah.
No, it's even less than
qualifying.
That. Either way, they were very, very close.
Very close, yeah.
Followed there by Stroll, who's dealing with a left wrist injury, so he's actually battling through that, which is good to see.
Yeah.
Ocon there in 9th, and then 10th was Hulkenberg.
Yeah, great to see him back on the grid.
Yeah, and great for Haas to get in a top 10 finish.
Yeah.
In qualifying. So I think we then got to talk about the McLarens a little bit, who are struggling. Norris is in 11th, and our man Oscar will start 18th.
Yeah.
What happened to Gasly? He must have not run very well to be there in 20th. So I expect him to be fast. But yeah, I guess the young fellas are down the back there with Sargent in 16th, Passeri in 18th, and then De Villiers in 19th. So be interesting to see if they can make any inroads. Looks like it's the big three teams again this year for the first race in Bahrain, and then we'll see if is it Aston Martin to take this next step up?
Yep.
Can McLaren sort out their issues, or has Ricciardo made the right decision to go be a backup driver at Red Bull?
Yeah, so that will be an interesting storyline throughout the year. Obviously, with Ricciardo moving across to Red Bull as a reserve driver,
Perez
go
hot seat. There's already been that chat of infighting between him and Max last year, and who's the best teammate to support Verstappen?
Well,
maybe Ricciardo is better.
You do have Verstappen as far and above the number one driver in that squad. Similar to Ferrari as well, with Sainz and Leclerc. You obviously have that one driver who the teammate prefers your first driver, so Leclerc would probably be Ferrari's.
But I feel like Sainz is closer to Leclerc than, say, Perez is to Verstappen.
Yeah, so it could easily flip for Ferrari, but I think that whole race strategy throughout the year, if you've got a driver, your preferred number one up there, potentially winning a race, and you've got your second driver sort of pushing him, what happens with team orders and all that sort of stuff. So,
and if Perez is not playing ball, I think, we'll probably know after the first month whether they're happy with him, and if he does not get results, then the Red Bull can be a bit ruthless with that second spot. We saw that with Gasly and Albon, being young fellas trying to get in there, and they didn't work out. Maybe they'll like the older veteran and Daniel Ricciardo returning to play second fiddle there.
Commodity. The car's probably changed heaps since then, though. So I haven't really heard much about if he's been able to do much testing. But again, it'd be an interesting storyline with him obviously moving from McLaren, and McLaren probably not achieving as good a result as they were expecting. They, even during testing, had already sort of said that they're probably riding the season off a little bit anyway, lowering expectations with Piastri coming in. So
I see Pepe's pulled up the odds there.
Does that reflect? Is that accurate? Do you think, with Verstappen being
fairly accurate,
a really short price favourite to take out the whole?
It's probably overs there for Alonso. That'd be crazy if he managed to pull that off.
The odds with that we are looking at is Verstappen at $1.44, then a big jump out to Charles Leclerc at 7s and Alonso at 11.50, Lewis Hamilton 13s, George Russell 15s. Is it his to lose?
I'd say so. Well, with where the car is at and
Yep.
how competitive they've been, yeah, it's where they implode like Ferrari did in the mid part of that year. I don't think so. But maybe a bit of looking at that, Sarah. Perez down there at 21. As
Little double, do you reckon?
well as. In a comparable machine, probably should have been second on that list. Is what I'm getting at.
I mean, again, it comes to race orders. Like,
yes,
you'd probably see him maybe lose a couple positions defending first for Verstappen if he plays along with the team.
But you think the idea is he should be finishing at least second in every race, if not sneaking a couple first, depending if anything happens to Max. So
Maybe.
it's. Maybe telling of what the bookies think of where Perez's season's going to go if he's not even in the top 5. Or was he 6th?
If that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th. Yeah.
Do you have the construction?
Yeah, it was Red Bull very short.
Yeah, okay.
Red Bull should be heavy favourites again.
I think it was
It'd be interesting.
again around that $1.40 for Red Bull, out to 5s for Ferrari, 6 for Mercedes.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see that Aston Martin there has actually closed a lot. Kind of with what they've done this week. What they've done in the last week, kind of shown that they're in the 4th team this year. Let's see if they can keep that pace, because they were middle of the pack last season.
Yep.
Which is not great for, say, McLaren, where they wanted to be and how they're going.
Yeah. I mean, by all accounts, as per most seasons, they seem to have been copying the design of the front runner team. So if they're able to get their aero package right, like Red Bull have, Alonso's got a good shot of probably sneaking in a few wins there this season as well.
I think it's been like 140 races since he's won actual Grand Prix.
That's crazy.
He's 41 years of age.
Oldest driver on the grid by far. So,
Yep.
When does it become Lance Stroll's team, do you think?
Well,
End
it's his old man's team, so he's...
The only reason Lance Stroll's in F1 is because his dad owns the team, in my opinion.
Billions of dollars.
Yeah.
He's a good driver, but I don't think he's young enough and talented enough for like some of the others. So, final bit, AlphaTauri. It sounds like Red Bull want to sell them, so that's maybe where Andretti can get there into F1. So that's another storyline we'll follow throughout the year, whether they sell and whether Andretti can finally get a license and get into the sport. That's F1. Big race tonight. It's midnight, I think, for us. 12:30.
Quick wrap up. AFL's not far off. A lot of packy games over the weekend. Looks like the Melbourne Demons with Maxi Gawn and Brodie Grundy, the Twin Towers, played okay. I think they both booted 3 yesterday. Dion Prestia.
Just don't make that reference when they're playing the Bombers.
Whoa. 9/11 joke there. Wow. That's, it's been 20 years, I guess.
I was saying don't make that joke as well as getting at.
Hey, Pete Davidson made a career out of it.
Yeah.
More his dad than anything else.
Yeah, I guess. Good movie, actually, King of Staten Island. Pete Davidson, AFL, NFL, the Combine, we'll talk that. Golf is approaching sort of major time. We're only about a month away from the Masters. Liv is playing and, a lot of money and maybe not
a lot of viewership.
Yeah, not a lot of viewership. It is very different. And then, we're just into footy season, aren't we? It's a complete change of pace where there's just non-stop Aussie sport. And our beloved NFL takes a bit of a break, but we've got the NBA heating up. We've got the EPL heating up. So there's plenty to talk about.
There's hockey, bro.
Hockey, yeah. All of us experts of the ace. Yeah. Wayne Gretzky, go Gretzky. Paulina Gretzky does a bit on Full Swing. Boys, thank you for your time. Thank you to anyone that is listening to the Esky. We do appreciate it. Next weekend, I'm at a wedding. You guys are down the coast, so we might try to convene before the AFL season starts to have a look at what's doing.
May have a special guest.
Yeah, possibly someone that knows a little bit more about Aussie rules footy than we do. We will see. We'll let you know on the socials when we'll be back, but it shan't be next weekend. Thank you. Hope you're having a good week wherever you are listening to the Esky. We do appreciate the support. If you've just come across this podcast, check us out on the socials. We have a little Facebook and Insta, which aren't doing as well as our YouTube, so we'd appreciate you checking that out. Have a great week. Plenty of sport to view. Go the Aussies for a Desmond Tutu. That rhymes. I'm a poet. I didn't know it. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.